truck and turn it up, it's time for the show. JB and JC and Mad Dog Mully, it's a power free for these amigos. A lunchtime meet and treat, a power trio. With guests and fans that really rock, it's time to talk 3 hours about those damn Gamecocks. So grab a sandwich, soup, or beer, and let's go. It's time for the show. Oh no, it's time for a TG, the Gamecock Show.
And gentlemen, the show is about to start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
It's time for Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Built by the Barndominium Company, served by Chicken Cock Whiskey, and part of the Chief Sports Network.
Touchdown Carolina! Touchdown Ace Sanders! Pressure! And he just dives in!
JC Shurburtt, Phil Mullinax, and Jamie Bradford.
All right, greetings and good morning. Welcome aboard and welcome home. Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Built by the Barndo Co. and presented by our friends at Resto Pros. Resto Pros of the Midlands, Resto Pros Midlands SC. BarnDominiumCompany.com. There when you need them. Kind of like the Carolina defense. The Barn Dominium Company is one of the nation's best builders, and they're building their dream homes in the Carolinas and in Georgia and in Tennessee. Mad Dog and myself, JC, will be here in a moment. John Whittle will be here in 20 minutes. Pat DeMarco will be here in an hour. Mike Morgan will join us later on. And Carolina is 2-0 after they hit the Bluegrass this weekend and punched Kentucky in the mouth a lot. 31-6, the final score. And now LSU comes to town, and so does College Game Day, as they will kick off at noon on ABC from Williams-Brice this coming Saturday. Game Day will air from Gamecock Park at 9 a.m. We obviously will talk so much about what we saw and what we may see with the 16th-ranked Bayou Bengals headed to the capital city. And can Carolina, per my prediction, Phil, back in June and in July,
I know it's all coming to fruition.
If they could get to 2-0, they could start 4-0, and LSU will present obviously that next challenge here, and we'll see how it goes. But man, I tell you what, first of all, something that. And look, we're going to make our way around the rest of the SEC. We got a lot of stuff to get to today.
No, yeah.
I thought Kentucky was a fragile football team. We've talked about that. That was kind of the word I came up with, I guess, maybe a month ago. I don't think that makes me some sort of genius. But I thought they were a fragile football team. I thought that Carolina's defense was really, really good, maybe even on the verge of being elite leading into the game, just based on looking at the little things. But was certainly unsure of whether this offense could take another step. And they did. They took a few steps this weekend. But if they were to take steps, Phil, the defense would help them win the football game. But I just thought, man, in typical Carolina fashion, something strange will happen. And something strange did happen. They beat the hell out of Kentucky at Kroger Field this weekend. It just is what it is. There were some bounces, obviously, that went the Gamecocks' way. Couple of fumbles that kind of just ended up landing right back in the arms of offensive players. But Lenore Sellers made great strides. They did a wonderful job getting him outside of the pocket to where he can throw the football or use his legs to run if necessary, but it was a throw-first mentality. They ran the football when they needed to run the football, although we all know that has to improve. The special teams was magnificent. Kai Kroger was his All-American self, and the defense was exactly what we tried to tell everybody that they're capable of being. Everybody wanted to wait and see it, and that's fine. You've seen it now. These guys are really good, and LSU coming into town this weekend is going to be an enormous test for Carolina on the defensive side of the football. But I got news. It's going to be an enormous test for LSU's offense too, because these guys can play, and they're confident, and they're deep, and they're talented. And this is quite the start, 2-0 to open the 2024 season.
You hate it for LSU coming in here losing that running back in practice last week, because he could have, that was the guy, that was a 1-2 punch they had that looked really good in week one, right? Those guys were just running, even in that big loss to Southern Cal. But man, what a difference a week makes.
I know. I guess Beamer's not getting fired this week, right?
Yeah, you go from the whole fan base, just losing their collective minds, and then all of a sudden, oh, what do you know? We've got game day coming here for the first time in 10 years. So yeah.
Which I was actually a little surprised by that. I thought that if Carolina won this weekend and then beat Akron, that if you go, you can go look at the schedule right now and you'll see what I'm saying. If they opened 4-0 by some chance, Ole Miss and South Carolina would no doubt be the game day spot on October the 5th. There's just nothing that really compares with it. Who knows? Maybe they would show back up. I don't know, but they are here this weekend, and I love the fact that it's a noon kick, because that gives you 6 straight hours of Carolina football. You're talking about the pregame show, and then you got the show, and so you get 6 straight hours, ESPN to ABC, of Gamecock football to showcase maybe yourselves being the surprise team in the Southeastern Conference. And look, man, too, and we'll get into so many specifics of this game and all that type stuff. That's what all of our analysts are for and all those type things. But I think this also kind of shifts back to something that we've talked a lot about on our program, at least, Phil, and the fact that we have an old school mentality in discussing college football now versus the new school of college football. Like, you don't really know anything about anybody anymore. I mean, you could make a safe bet every year for the foreseeable future that Georgia and Alabama and Texas and Ohio State, those four, you could probably lump Oregon into that, I guess, if you want to. But those four teams right there, now that Texas has kind of returned to form and they're in an era that they can win with because they have so much money. When you add up all the tradition and all the financial impacts that those programs can have on themselves, it's safe to say that every year they're going to have a bunch of really, really, really good football players. And they're, even in a down year, they're probably all still going to win 10 games. Like, that's a safe bet. Maybe it doesn't happen, but if you were a betting man and you had to put money down, like, you're pretty safe doing that with those four teams. There is no safety in that in any other program in college football anymore. No, just like this South Carolina team here, nobody knew about them. Now, we knew more than most people did because we have some access. But the rest of the country, they didn't know anything. They didn't know. You don't know when you look around the nation how transfers that land at different programs. You don't know if money is impacting their day-to-day decision-making. Are they really there? Are they not there? Are they only there because of cash, but they don't want to? That does happen. It happens as adults, so we'd be nuts to think that it doesn't happen for 18 to 21 and 22-year-olds. So you don't know how that's affecting these kids, right? You don't know how when you bring a kid out of the portal that you've recruited for like a week, you don't know how he's going to come in and mesh with the rest of the football team, guys that you've recruited for 2, 3, 4 years sometimes. You don't know. Like, you don't know what you're getting until you get 3, 4, 5 weeks into the college football season. And our Gamecocks here are a prime example of that in college football. I mean, people they're starting to chirp now, look, man, this defense, man, this guy and that guy. Yeah, well, we knew they were here. We've been trying to tell people that. Nobody wanted to listen. But you don't know until you can see it. And we're getting our glimpse at other teams. You look around the country, man. Look at Boston College. Look how well they've played. And then you start dissecting and figuring out, well, who's on their roster? Well, where did they come from? Yada, yada, yada. Look what happened to Notre Dame this weekend. Is Notre Dame worse than Northern Illinois? No. But is Notre Dame really that good? We don't really know because we don't know how good Texas A&M is because they have a first-year head coach and like 100 new players. So, there's just so many things that you just don't know anymore. You just don't. And it's going to take time to figure all that out. But I think some people who've been watching Carolina play football and they watched them get better from week 1 to week 2 and go on the road in this league and put their foot on the throat of Kentucky. I mean, that was a debacle for the Wildcats. Carolina beat the crap out of them. To be able to do that with that type of dominance, people are starting to pay attention.
Yeah. I mean, I think the argument for delaying rankings, although I know they never will because it's just, the way it is, but until after a few weeks, maybe not necessarily as long as the playoff committee holds theirs, but, until the end of September is the argument for that is so much stronger these days with the wild, wild west mentality of NIL, the free agency with the portal essentially. And now, it's just some of these teams that have, were pretty high up in those first coaches and AP polls are going to be not even receiving votes at the end of this year. So it's, before we start ranking these teams and I realize trying to have a mechanism to pick which games to set at places like Game Day and SEC Nation and things like that. You have to have some way of figuring that out, but you could do that behind the scenes. It's not like they're using the early AP to figure out where they're going to be. But man, yeah, you just don't know. You're right. I mean, there are going to be teams that emerge that, like JC was saying, was like, this team needs to go get them a ball coach, right? And then next thing you know, that's what they do, and they look like, wow, they can compete in whatever league it is. And it's one thing I can say is this looks like it's going to be an excellent season of college football, top to bottom, throughout the whole thing, because it's just, there is a lot of parity. There's still the cream of the crop at the top, but the middles of these conferences are going to compete, I think, a little harder, at least within their own leagues, than some people expected.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And look at, in the SEC, I think you're starting to get a little bit of a better idea. I still think that Texas, Georgia, and Bama are your top three teams, and that's going to play itself out. And then I think Ole Miss, Missouri, and Tennessee are right there. And then the rest of it, who knows? Is LSU in that mix? Are the Gamecocks going to be in that mix? I mean, you just don't know. And all of these teams are probably going to win a game that nobody expects them to win. Because it's not like nobody expected Carolina to beat Kentucky this past weekend. That's not it. It's in the manner in which that it happened. I mean, they did receive some picks and stuff from the national guys on game day, but then people were like, well, no, wait a second here. Kentucky completed, their starting quarterback completed 4 passes this weekend. Three of them went to their team, and one went to the other team. So like, they literally couldn't do anything. I mean, it was really an embarrassing moment for the Kentucky offense because of the South Carolina defense. So yeah, I'm with you. I totally think that there's going to be a scramble of things that are to come across the sport. I think if you look at the rankings today, if they even matter, which by the way, Carolina did receive 10 votes in the AP and 25 in the coaches. But if you look at those rankings today, I would venture a guess you can look up, it's September the 9th. So you can probably look up on October the 9th, and I'll bet you about half those teams aren't even in there. No. It's really scatterbrained out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's because we don't. I mean, it's the uncertainty that goes into every off season, right? I mean, there's players moving all over the place. It was even interesting. I think it was kind of paralleled a little bit in the NFL with an influx of young talent that came in, and I think some of the surprises last week or yesterday, even at that level, were the present. But I mean, you don't know before you see the product on the field. Even if you do have inside, sources and things like that all over the country, you don't know what your football team is going to look like lined up across from another one until it actually happens.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's 100% right. And the standings today are as follows: Carolina and everybody else. Right now, South Carolina is the only team with a win in the SEC. Kentucky, of course, is the only team with a loss in the SEC, but there are a bunch sitting at 2-0. All of them have numbers next to their name inside of the top 15, except for 2, the Gamecocks and the Vanderbilt Commodores. After beating Virginia Tech and Alcorn State to open the season, Vandy is 2-0. They'll head to Georgia State this weekend to look to go 3-0. A little bit of some eyebrow raising going on there, and all of a sudden, you look at Vandy's schedule, and it's hard to, it's really difficult to think that they might go on the road and beat Missouri or beat Alabama at home or something like that, Texas, LSU, Tennessee. But all of a sudden, heading to Lexington, you're like, well, and God forbid, when South Carolina comes to town and in November, I mean, there's just some wacky stuff that could happen. So we'll see. But we'll talk a lot about the SEC as the afternoon and as the week goes along. But we do know this: Carolina sits at 2-0. After an unbelievable performance on the road in Lexington this weekend, specifically by the defense and by the special teams. Brock Vandagriff looked like a negative 5-star as opposed to a 5-star quarterback in that game. Lenore Sellers certainly grew a ton. And how about this defense? 10 sacks now through the first 2 games of the year, 23 tackles for loss through the first 2 games of the year. It is night and day from where they were just this time 1 year ago. We'll hit a timeout, and when we return, we'll get John Whittle in with the Big Spur. Again, we got Mike Morgan and Pat DeMarco ahead as well. Gamecock traditions. Hey, I got bad news for myself. I had a tent in the backyard this weekend. It started pouring rain yesterday and filled up with water and broke. So I went online to GamecockTraditions.com and said, well, I'll just order another one, and they're sold out again. And I knew, so I preached all year, and I've got 2 other tents. It's okay, but I like to have 3. So I preached all year about get the tent. Bam, they're gone. So, Kevin, if you're listening and you have any coming in soon, I'd really like to have a chat with you. But they've got everything else, that's for sure. Gamecock Traditions is what. Yeah, I mean, this is it. You gonna be on TV this weekend? Do you need a flag to wave in the background on Gamecock Park on College Game Day? You want the new hat? You want the stuff? You want the good stuff? You're gonna get out there and embarrass yourself? At least look good doing it. Gamecock Traditions will help you do that. Village at Sand Hill, Lexington, online. GamecockTraditions.com, and don't forget, go by and get your Beat LSU stickers so you can hand them out at your tailgate this weekend when Carolina takes the field. We'll hit a timeout. John Whittle up next here on ITG.
There's nothing like Saturday in South Carolina. However you enjoy Gamecock football, Gamecock Traditions has a long-standing legacy of being a part of your game day. From tailgates to touchdowns, Gamecock Traditions has what you need and want with our beloved Block C logo. Get into Gamecock Traditions in Lexington or the Village at Sand Hill, or visit GamecockTraditions.com and have it shipped to your doorstep. We look forward to taking care of your family. Go Gamecocks.
I'm not allowed to tell the ref how bad he is, so I'm going to need you to do that for me. Oh. He said, you're gone.
I'm a beggar who could use some help. I'm a seeker, searching for myself. I'm a rolling stone, just waiting on a friend. I'm a lover, wishing on a star for another, with a broken heart to hold each other close till the end.
Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. 843-851-2222 or visit TonyPope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Nana's Porch, nanasporch.com. At Nana's Porch, they cater weddings, parties, and all kinds of special events. Their meals are served buffet style, and seconds, they're encouraged. Plus, they can bring their mobile food unit to bring on-site and serve your guests as a unique alternative for your catering needs. Inquire about rentals as well. nanasporch.com. Find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. 336-259-7550. It is 11:22. Welcome back to Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barndo Co. and presented by our friends at Palm Casual. Can't think, with all this rain we got here in the low country, it literally rained from the moment I woke up yesterday until I went to bed last night. but I got good stuff, so it doesn't get rotten out there in the sun and the elements because of Palm Casual. PalmCasual.com. They are they make it all. So they've got the best warranties, best guarantees, all that type of stuff. PalmCasual.com to soup up your outdoors just before the best part of the year. John Whittle, generally one of the best parts of our program, joins us on Monday. Sorry about last week, John. It was a holiday, so we were off, but it's not today, and Carolina's 2-0.
Well, I've got to I've got to give you guys a little credit. I think, for 2 years I've given y'all a really hard time leading into Labor Day about how y'all don't need to take Labor Day off, which I think is stupid, and we'll continue to do so. However, it has worked out brilliantly for y'all both years, and so I've got to applaud you guys for that. So next year, I promise I will not give y'all a hard time at all. I'll just think all my thoughts to myself.
Okay.
But last year, as we remember, South Carolina had that really challenging game against North Carolina, but y'all didn't have a show on Monday. Clemson lost to Duke that Monday night, and that kind of softened everything up for the next Tuesday when y'all got back. And, I think everybody needed an extra day after South Carolina's win over Old Dominion. So good work each of these last 2 years, and next year I won't say anything.
That's right. It avoided us from looking really silly for having those immediate knee-jerk reactions. After a game like that, taking a day, probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, a day when y'all didn't have to labor.
That's right.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I try to stay out of all that stuff. The people that you got to close bridges. You got other stuff to do. Instead of just talk on the air when you get beat, you gotta go out and shut down traffic, make sure nobody's about to step in front of a bus, all those type things, John. So that's what we do on Labor Day, and we save lives is what we do. We save lives here at Inside the Gamecocks, the show. So you're welcome. Anyways, look, Carolina is 2-0, and John, I don't think it's fair to start anywhere but with what they're doing on defense, and specifically what they're doing up front. They turned the page in a hurry from what was a major deficiency in this program to maybe the elite strength of it, in the fact that they just get bukus of pressure on the quarterback. They cause all sorts of problems up there.
Absolutely, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. And Kentucky was supposed to have a pretty solid offensive line. It's not like they were just running through some scrubs out there. They did it against what is thought to be a pretty good group. Now I know that they've been disappointed in the first 2 weeks, to include their opener against Southern Miss as well, with the way the offensive line is played. But it's supposed to be a relatively talented group. So kudos to the Gamecocks for their performances last 2 weeks on the defensive line. And I'll say that, I thought that South Carolina's defensive line would be good. I thought that they would be solid. I thought depth was critical in them being as good as they are. Like I thought that was going to be the key piece. Like, there have been some very strong words thrown around about the defense and that defensive line specifically coming into the season, and I wasn't necessarily buying into that. I thought they'd be good. I didn't think they'd be bad, but I didn't know if game wreckers and elite and some of the things that have been said about them was quite true. But they've, through 2 games, they've been incredible, and they've lived up to some of the big words that have been said about them.
They have. The stats are there. 10 sacks through 2 games, 23 tackles for loss. All that stuff's there. Even you can even take those stats and slide them over and just look at the pressures and how quickly, you saw Brock Vandegrift this weekend, the weekend before, Old Dominion's kid, Grant Wilson. They're having to, their brains having to move a little quicker, trying to make some decisions, and it's forced them into some mistakes, and it's forced them to just throw the ball away. It's forced them into some penalties. There's the disruption has been really, I don't even know how to put it into words. I got wind that they were really good, John, but to your point, like, you want to be you do want to be a little bit careful, right, about saying those type of things and how far you take that. It's just fair to the kids and let them take it far. And that is exactly what they've done through these last 8 games. I'll add something too real quick, just kind of on an little off note here. I really appreciate you not doing something in that last segment because it has nothing to do with you. But quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of hearing big blue wall. There ain't nothing that's big and there ain't no wall. They might be blue. And a lot of that is because they got their ass kicked this weekend by South Carolina. But this big blue wall thing, I don't even know where it came from and when it came 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm with you. Like, they're expected to be like pretty good, but they're never one of the best offensive lines in the SEC or in the country. This is all hogwash. It's some term that some dork came up with in the bluegrass. So, like, when I hear this come up on the SEC network, I'm like, what are you talking about? Nobody ever thinks, oh, you know what? The best offensive line in the league is at Kentucky, just like they don't at South Carolina. So thanks for not saying that. That's the last time we're going to talk about it. But I was really tired of hearing about it. And I think Carolina put that whole narrative to bed on Saturday afternoon.
Well, they used to have a really good offensive line under one of their old coaches, John Shulman. I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
They had 1 year.
But
this is some tradition up there. They had 1 year where it was good.
but you're correct. They were supposed to be pretty good, but they're not a big blue wall.
No, they're not.
So I'm with you.
All right, on the offensive side though, progress, right, John? What'd you see?
Yeah, progress. They were going against a very good Kentucky defensive line. Now I was kind of looking back through some of the preseason projections on those guys, and I think it was Brad Crawford had them, I think, 9th in the SEC, which doesn't seem great, but that's also one of the the SEC is obviously the best defensive line league in the country. Athlon Sports had them either 17 or 18 nationally, ranked on the defensive line. So top, I think it was 8th in the SEC maybe, but those guys are really good with a guy who's probably going to be a top 10 pick right there in the middle. So, I thought South Carolina did a good job. I thought they did a pretty good job on the offensive line and a better job, much better than what they did in week 1, blocking on the whole to include, wide receivers, tight ends, and such as well. So, I think that gave South Carolina a chance offensively to start off with. I thought Lenora Sellers had some time to throw, and I thought Lenoris got better as the game went on and kind of settled in as the game went on. He had some wide receivers make a couple of plays for him. That touchdown throw to Josh Simon certainly wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. Josh Simon made a nice adjustment to make the catch there. I think that South Carolina is just going to continue to grow and get a little bit better offensively. And when you have so many new pieces and parts, it takes a little bit of time. And, what has to happen during that time is you have to figure out ways to score points and be productive and win games. Like, you don't always click on all cylinders when you got so many new pieces, especially in offensive football. But that goes across really any sport. So, but the key is finding a way to win games as you're adjusting. And, that's what's happened these first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I thought that that Lenora Sellers this weekend, first of all, there were a couple of things that I really liked. They moved him out of the pocket. They got him out of there. And when you get him out, everybody knows now that he can run the football, right? That's on tape. So when you get him out, somebody's paying attention. It allowed for them to complete some big plays down the field, some explosive plays, if you will. That's number one. Number two, though, and I saw on both lines of scrimmage, guys, defense, and we'll come back to that here in just a minute, but also on offense, when they need running the football was an issue early in the game. And as the game went along, when they needed to get yards on the ground, they got them. And the same thing on the defensive side of the football. Remember that 4th and 1 on Kentucky's 31 where they went for it, right? And they didn't get it. And we've seen this time and time again around here where Carolina generally gets beat on those plays. It's South Carolina's offense will say, we're running the football. Good luck stopping us. And they're like, no problem. And they shut it down. And then you flip the field and it's like, it's 4th and 1, Gamecocks. Just to give you a heads up here. We're going to run the ball and you can't stop us from getting a first down. And Carolina said, yeah, I don't think so. And so they kind of flipped that narrative this weekend. I thought those are grown man moments for this program. Like that's what you have to be able to do to win in the SEC. And Carolina had multiple examples of that yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Shane talked a good bit after Old Dominion about being impressed with his team's physicality. And, maybe so. It wasn't necessarily real noticeable to me, at least. And I think for most in that game. And it's also against a opponent that's, not supposed to be in your league. So if you play more physical than them, then, that's expected. But, Kentucky under Mark Stoops has prided itself on playing physical football. And I thought South Carolina kind of took them behind the barn from a physicality standpoint this past weekend. And so much of that is dictated by your lines of scrimmage. And, I thought both lines played really well from a physicality standpoint. And, I think that's a real testament to the mindset of this team and being willing to meet that challenge, against a group that's kind of known for that. And I think that's something that Shane stressed to those guys going into this game. And I think those guys rose up to that challenge pretty well. And it extends beyond the linemen also. I mean, the linebackers played with great physicality. I mean, I thought South Carolina's tight ends played hard and played tough. It extends beyond that group. But from you mentioned specifically the run game, and I do agree with you. I thought Moore opened up a little bit later, and maybe that is because South Carolina was just a more physical team and maybe even a more better conditioned team and wore Kentucky down a little bit on both sides of the ball. So, I was really pleased with how things came together, especially in that second half.
Who's the best wide receiver on this team that you, or at least who do you think it is?
Phil? Can you get a little shoulder shrug emoji pop up on here somewhere? Like I don't know, and I don't think we'll know next week. I don't think we'll know this week. Next week I don't think. I was kind of hoping to have a pretty good idea coming out of the bye week and going into Ole Miss, like kind of how that wide receiver room would shake out. And who would kind of stand up and emerge a little bit. And I don't know that we'll know by then, to be 1,000% honest with you. There've been, I think Mazio's played the best out of any player when you combine the two games. And, that's not a huge surprise to me. He was one of my guys projected to start coming into this. So that one doesn't take me too far off guard. So, maybe it's him. To me, he's probably a nose out in front of the other guys when you talk about, who's playing the best. But, Jared Brown, who's had a couple of drops, made a big catch on third down over by the sideline the other day. And, that's probably what they've seen in him to have him play. Starter snaps and played more snaps at wide receiver against Kentucky than anybody else. But I don't know. I don't know to give you a more concise answer, and I don't know that we're going to know certainly before the first bye week, but maybe not even shortly after.
John Whittle with the Big Spur. It's 11:37. So to go a little bit further on Lenore Sellers here, in developing as a quarterback, and by the way, he is healthy. I saw somebody in our chat box earlier. I peeked over, and they must have listened to Preston and Bill and myself this morning on 107.5 The Game, because they're Their theory on the quote injury was more like bathroom break for Lenore Sellers, but we'll leave that here.
Well, he went into the injury tent there for a while. I mean, maybe it was, but he went into the injury tent for a little bit and then went back to the bathroom, or excuse me, the locker room. Maybe the bathroom too. Who knows? But
I don't know.
Went back in there. I mean, he was jogging the whole way both times. So I don't know, but I think there was something going on besides just a toilet. He would have either gone straight to the locker room or they would have lifted up the injury tent over the drain to do it that way if needed. But I think there was something going on there. But yes, he is fine.
He's okay. We know that lower body injury. All right.
Nothing like scaring the crap out of all of us there.
Oh, Phil, that's enough. Come on, man. You got to be better than that. All right. No, but there's his development. I mean, I saw something earlier this morning. I think it was on the Big Spur about his goggles, and they're not helping his vision or something like that, which maybe that's true. I don't know. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but he's a redshirt freshman who every week is trying to slow the game down a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And eventually he'll get to what Michael Flint says is feeling the pressure as opposed to seeing it. You don't have to see it to feel it. And I just think that's where he is. I just think you're going to have some moments here and there where it's like, man, he didn't see that guy coming. Well, yeah, that's because he's trying to process 4 and 5 dudes running across the field, make sure he doesn't get sacked based on the guys standing in front of them, reading coverages, dissecting coverages, there's a lot that he's processing on every single snap, and he's got a guy talking in his ear until the 15-second mark too. And so until this game is really, 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 really slowed down, you're probably going to see some of this stuff. Of course, by the way, he's not the one that's sacking himself. Communicating up front to be able to stop some of these guys might be a little bit more helpful. But, overall, when you look at week 1 and what they kind of did with him, John, which I think that caught everybody off guard. And then you get to yesterday where he's able to play a little bit freer, it felt like at times, but getting him out of the pocket, not running him 20 times. He only ran 7 in the game. I think that includes sacks and stuff. I think overall they had a nice little game plan to try to get him comfortable, and I think he's much more comfortable coming out of that one.
Yeah, and I mean, to touch on the peripheral vision goggles thing first, like I don't really get that. I saw a
I don't either.
I watched some of the Falcons Steelers game yesterday, and I'm in a fantasy league where you can start 2 quarterbacks. I had Justin Fields and Kirk Cousins. My fantasy team not very good, but I was watching that game, and I was watching Kirk Cousins, who signed a $180 million contract this offseason, get blindside hit more than Lenore Sellers did. And, there's times where quarterbacks are just going to not see the rush, not feel the rush, and they're not all going to have goggles on. So I don't think that is a thing. And like you mentioned, he's a redshirt freshman. He was making his, second start of his career, first starting an SEC game on the road. I mean, I asked Shane and Lenore both specifically about, it seemed like he felt pressure a little bit better in the second half than he did in the first. And, it did not seem like he recognized pressure all that great in the first half. I thought he had some issues in that first half, but it's just being young, it's being a redshirt freshman. So, I thought he settled in, and I forgot the second part of, I've been so kind of mystified at this goggles discussion, for the last 24 hours that I heard you bring that up, and I kind of tuned out the rest of the way. So if you said something, I don't blame you to respond to, you're going to have to remind me.
No, it's college football, right? Like that's where we are. I mean, I would just like to, I would like to think, because I'm with you, I buy zero stock in that theory at all. I think it's absolutely just nothing. It's ridiculous to even think we're talking about it. But these things grow legs and they run around, and I can't. And then you got to stop them from running around. And I just I'd like to think, I'm just kind of spitballing here. I'd like to think at some point in time over his career, he's been wearing the things for quite some time now. Somebody would have come along and said, "Hey, did you not see that guy?" No. Oh, well, maybe it's your glasses. Like, don't you think that might have come up somewhere? But
Or
it never did.
I mean, he probably wants to be the best quarterback that he can be, right? So if
You would
he's
think so, yeah.
right, if he says, I'm not really seeing these rushers, I don't think like I should. Maybe something needs to change with my vision. Then like, I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of why he can't wear contacts, but you either wear goggles or it sounds to me like you either wear goggles or you don't. And I think I'd probably rather have him wearing the goggles to be able to see. So, we'll go with that. We'll go with that for now.
Let's leave that there. Yeah, that's right. But overall, the point is he is progressing well, and he's going to have to. Hey, look, he's got to take another step this weekend. I think it's if Carolina holds LSU to 6 points, we can safely say their defense might be the best one in college football. But I don't think they're going to do that. LSU is going to score some points this weekend, John. Carolina's offense is going to have to take another big step to be able to do the same.
Yeah, I think you're right, and South Carolina is certainly been incredible on the defensive line. LSU is pretty darn good on the offensive line. They've got a left tackle that's probably going to be a top 10 pick, maybe top 5 pick. Their right tackle's pretty darn good too. They haven't given up a sack in 2 games. That includes to Southern Cal. They have only allowed 4 tackles for loss. That's pretty good. So, South Carolina is going to have to figure out a way to influence the game a little bit differently, perhaps on defense. I don't know that they're going to be able to just consistently rush forward. I mean, South Carolina, especially against ODU, but even against Kentucky, they've really just rushed 4 guys. They brought an occasional pressure, but hadn't been a ton. So they may have to do some things a little bit differently. I mean, they're certainly going to have to do some things a little bit differently. They're not going to be able to get the consistent pass rush with just 4 guys, but they're going to have to change some looks, do some things differently, bring some guys. So, but yeah, I think the line of scrimmage for going against LSU's offensive line is going to be a big difference. LSU's defensive line is not necessarily what it has been. I don't know that they have the same kind of game changers and game wreckers as Shane calls them on that line this year. And they just lost their best defensive lineman, a defensive tackle, Jacoby and Guillory, for the season this past week. I think I read that he tore his Achilles against Nicholls State. So, LSU's defensive line is already not quite as good as what they usually are. I mentioned looking back at some of those preseason rankings earlier, LSU was ranked behind Kentucky from a defensive line standpoint in all 3 of the rankings I looked at. So, and then now they've lost their best guy. So I just think that, not that South Carolina's offensive line is going to have an easy time, but I don't know that it's going to be the same type of challenge that Kentucky brought. So that's going to be an interesting thing to follow, and hopefully South Carolina's offensive line continues to grow as it did from week 1 to week 2.
The matchup this weekend, no question about it, is Carolina's defensive front versus LSU's offensive line. If they're getting to Garrett Nussmeier, it could cause some real problems for the Tigers, who only averaged 3.8 yards per carry. Nussmeier has completed 75% of his throws through the first 2 games of the season for 610 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 1 pick. That tells you all you need to know about what they're trying to do with their offense, especially now with John Emery being out. And you mentioned, of course, the defense trying to get themselves built. And they will. It's just going to take some time bringing in the defensive coordinator from Missouri. All right, John, one of the things we have not gotten to, and then we'll let you run here, though, is, hey, man, welcome back, Kai Kroger. I mean, he looked phenomenal. And I know a couple of those punts were sailing with the wind, too, but it didn't matter. Kentucky's guy couldn't do that. He got him up and got him moving, and that put them in a lot of tough situations as well this weekend. If you get that version of Kai Kroger the rest of the year, Carolina's in pretty good shape.
I'm with you 1,000% on that one. I kind of popped off in the press box. I'll admit it on his first punt. That first punt went really far. I think it was a 53-yarder on his first punt, but that had the hang time of a driver. And if Kentucky's return man called for a fair catch really early, because I think he was kind of flummoxed by the wind and ended up dropping it, and nobody was around him to be able to get to the ball. Like, he would have had plenty of room if he'd fielded it cleanly. I was like, well, that went far, but if he doesn't get a little bit more hang time, then it's going to be real different. Well, his punts the rest of the day, not that one was terrible, but his punts the rest of the day were incredible. And I thought he had one that went into the teeth of the wind in the second quarter that went 53 yards and took a hard bounce to the right and went out at the 10-yard line. Like, that was huge play in that game. And that was a drive that South Carolina would stop Kentucky on that 4th and 1. I thought he was awesome. Had 5 punts, 4 went over 50 yards. A couple of them were with the wind, a couple of them were against the wind. I thought he was huge in that game for sure.
Yeah, he's a kid who's very capable of changing the game in a hurry. They're going to have him this weekend. We'll see what happens with the weather. For whatever reason it is, when Carolina and LSU tangle on the field, there's something. And this time, a hurricane is coming up. It is going to hit the coastline of Louisiana on Wednesday, and it's going to go right through Baton Rouge. So it's probably going to interrupt their preparation a little bit, and then it'll head on up into the Midwest before the Tigers take the trip here to Columbia. And they are, at this point in time, this early in the week, expecting 50-50 on rain chances Saturday, maybe some thunderstorms. So there could be a weather situation. Johns, we'll see. Outside of that, though, the hype is going to be here for the next 5 days, right? I mean, this is when guys like you and Mad Dog and Hale and myself, JC, whomever, we get to enjoy these weeks a little bit because everybody's just really fired up. The biggest show in college football is coming to town. They're on ABC. They've got a ranked matchup. If Carolina wins, they will certainly be in the top 25 next week. So I think we're all expecting this atmosphere on Saturday, whether or not. It's probably going to be something that's pretty electric.
It'd be the first home victory over LSU in almost 100 years. 1930 is the only time South Carolina fans got to experience a win in Williams-Brice over the LSU Fighting Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there for that one. The Big Spur hadn't started yet. So yeah. Yeah, I think that might be fun to do that this weekend. So we'll see. I do think your projection is right that if South Carolina wins this weekend, they'll be ranked in the top 25.
Yeah, I think they will be, and that would be quite the badge of honor for Shane Beamer and his team. Just so everybody's aware, there are some secondary market tickets available if you don't have one or are not a season ticket holder. But there are also a few tickets still available. This will be a sold-out contest this weekend. There are 7 tickets that are available that aren't being resold. There are 7 available this weekend. So if you want one of those 7, you might want to head to Ticketmaster and gobble them up. All right. Any other
pretty price? Because I mean, face value for tickets for Gamecock Club members was $125. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So I do think, and I don't know if you guys saw this or touched on it yet, but I thought it was interesting. Paul Feinbaum was on with Matt Berry on his podcast. I think it was yesterday, and said that game day was absolutely going to Lexington, Kentucky for this coming week until South Carolina lost. It was going to be there for Georgia, Kentucky, and what was thought to maybe be a top 25 matchup. And y'all correct me if I'm wrong in this one. I don't think game day's ever been to Lexington, Kentucky. So not only did South Carolina take a win, it also took college game day from the Wildcats. They've been there for hoops, but I don't think they've been there for football. So I thought that was pretty neat for Shane and company to go up to Lexington and bring game day back with them.
That's a good point. I don't know. I know they've never been to Vanderbilt. I thought they had at some point in time ventured their way to the Bluegrass, but I guess I'm wrong. I have not. So, John, we haven't gotten a release on this. I haven't gotten anything official yet from the university. Have you?
No, on exactly where
Like
in game we know.
I mean, it's in Gamecock Park, but
yeah, but that's all we know for
yeah.
sure right now.
And to clear the record, game day has been to Lexington once.
Okay.
October 20, 2007 for a Kentucky-Florida game. It was top AP top 15 game where Kentucky lost 45-37 to Florida that day. So,
well, that would be, you said it was October what? 20th?
20th. Yeah. 10/20/07. Hmm?
What was the date of in 07? That's when they came here ranked number 7 in the country. And Carolina knocked them off. You remember that? That was earlier in October, wasn't it?
That yeah, because traditionally Kentucky's earlier in October. Yes, yeah. From the old scheduling ways. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was that was the first week I ever worked for the BigSpur.com was the Kentucky football game week.
Yeah, Andre Woodson was their quarterback, and Carolina clipped them. I think they were number 7 that night in the nation when they came to town. Number 7, I believe.
I think you're right. Eric Norwood had a couple of pick sixes, right? And it was at least one pick six, and I know he had at least 2 interceptions. I think he had 2 touchdowns in that game.
He might have. It was an electric atmosphere that night. Carolina, they took care of business. I'm gonna try to do it this weekend. Well, we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. John, do you have a guest picker? I mean, who's the guest picker? Do you have a guess for the guest picker?
I kind of think it's going to be Dawn. I don't know. I haven't been given any intel, but that would be my guess. Would be Dawn. I mean, she's a national face. I mean, she's more than just South Carolina. She is very much a national face. So I got to think that that's going to be the pick. I don't know who it would be, unless it's somebody out of the blue, like Kenny Chesney did it here one time, and he obviously has no ties to the university. But if it's somebody with ties to the school, I would think Dawn, and the other 2 that we kind of talked about on the drive back from Lexington was Trick Williams. Pat McAfee has the WWE tie. Patrick Belton was a wide receiver here. Now he's Trick Williams with WWE and NXT. I think he just lost the main championship at that level. But and Quincy Hall was another one who I thought about. A sprinter winning Olympic gold medal in the 400 meters is a big deal. So
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
It wasn't a breakdancing bronze. It was a 400 meter sprinter, gold medal. So, I mean, that's big deal. That's high profile. So those were the 3 that I could come up with South Carolina ties, that I thought it might be, but maybe it's somebody random too. They're probably already thinking they're giving South Carolina a gift just by bringing game day. So they may just go out of the box completely from the South Carolina side and bring in somebody that they want.
I don't know.
And ESPN makes that choice. I know there's some folks in the chat box saying, we should pick this person and that person. It's ESPN. They'll maybe take a little bit of cue and guidance and hope from South Carolina, but it's an ESPN call.
I don't, unless they're going to, which they could, they've probably got the money to do it, to fly private back and then back again. But Hootie plays Friday night in Raleigh and Saturday night in Virginia Beach. So it's not like the trip would be long. If it is Darius, he certainly could get to Columbia, do the pick, and then fly back to Virginia Beach. So we'll see. I don't know who it'll be. We'll find out. John, as always, a pleasure. Great stuff. Carolina's 2-0. Our lives are at least temporarily on the easy side when it comes to entertaining people every day. So we'll see what it looks like next week.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Always good being around.
Yes, sir. There you go.
Thanks,
the great
Whittle.
John Whittle. Bigspur.com. All right. When we return, how about some film room? How's that sound? Talking ball with the great Pat DiMarco. Carolina football is powered by our friends at Electric Bikes of Charleston. ElectricBikesCharleston.com. The weather is turning. You can feel it. You want to be outside, moving and grooving, listening to ITG on your headphones, cruising around on a sweet, sweet ride. ElectricBikesCharleston.com. The holidays are right around the corner. Take a peek. Look at it. ElectricBikesCharleston.com.
To win in sports, you have to adapt your strategy as the game changes. The same is true of investments. I'm Eric Ponder, an Edward Jones financial advisor, and I can be your financial coach. Call 864-862-2161. Edward Jones, member Civic.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Gary Patterson for your personal price plan today.
Touchdown Brewer. Set up a screen, and it goes to Brewer. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown Brewer, his second of the day. Pitches it to Brewer, turns the corner, touchdown, number 3 of the afternoon.
Hey folks, it's Mike Morgan for Ryan Brewer Fence. That's right, you know the former Gamecock legend as a terrific college football player. Well, I know him as that too. I also know him as the guy that runs a great business, one of the best businesses in South Carolina. How do I know that? Well, for one, I'm actually a client of Ryan's. I had my home in Columbia done years ago, and his crew did an outstanding job, just as he does for everybody else. Whether you're in the market for a fence, railings, columns, or anything in between, their craftsmanship, their experience, and service second to none. Ryan Brewer Fence has over 15 years of experience with consultation and installation of residential and commercial fencing and railings. Rest assured your job will be done with an unparalleled level of expertise, and it's done on time, and they do it right the first time. Again, you're not going to do any better than Ryan Brewer. Ryan Brewer Fence. The website is ryanbrewer.net. Set up an appointment today. Tell them Mike sent you.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Gary Patterson for your personal price plan today.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Disaster comes uninformed. During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. It can become extremely difficult to bounce back to what you knew before. Having your home or office destroyed or damaged by water, fire, smoke, or mold affects your personal and business lifestyle. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. Resto Pros of the Midlands. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. 12:02. I'm laughing at Pat. 12:02. Welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show. The national anthem every day at noon is presented by our friends at Edward Jones and Eric Ponder. EdwardJones.com. Eric Ponder, such a great Gamecock, like Pat DiMarco. 864-862-2161. You can call him and have him secure your financial future. Edward Jones, Eric Ponder, inside the Gamecocks, the show. It is noon, so welcome back, and we welcome you back with some breaking news from the SEC. More awards dished out for Carolina football this week. Both Kai Kroger and Nick Emanwori have been named players of the week. Nick Emanwori is the defensive player of the week in the league. And Pat, Kai Kroger, after booming it an average of 53 yards a punt this weekend, has been named the special teams player of the week. Last week, Kennard and Stewart took home awards. So that's 4 in the last 8 days. Not bad, dude. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, shooting, I feel like Kennard and Stewart could have had another. I mean, they had another day today or on Saturday as well. So we've had good individual play and at times good team play. So it's been this was a fun one to watch. I was up in the mountains playing golf this weekend with 16 or 15 other crazy Gamecocks, and we almost burned the house down.
That's awesome, man. They left the actual stove on all night. They literally actually almost burned it down.
Oh, really? No,
I'm just kidding.
There was a guy who swam out in the middle of Lake Kiwi at about 5:30. Huge game. Not gonna name drop.
Y'all celebrating, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, good times.
Got to win more often, man.
It was worth the celebration. I mean, they embarrassed Kentucky on their home field, Pat. I mean, I mentioned earlier, I was joking with John. I was like, we you hear this crap all the time about this like big blue wall. They had one actual real good year with their offensive line. Outside of that, it's just some narrative that took off that actually doesn't exist. And they walked right into that ballpark this weekend and knocked them on their ass. They took them out behind the woodshed. They beat the crap out of them, and the scoreboard indicates it.
2.5 quarters in, the stadium was empty.
Yeah,
Man,
I mean, Carolina's more
right
physical team. They're better coached. All of that. I mean, I didn't expect to see all that, but that's exactly what we saw.
Well, I'm going to say something not very nice. Kentucky's quarterback stinks. Oh,
Yeah,
my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, 1.2 quarterback rating out of like 160.
God, Uncle Rico could play better than that.
I've never seen a quarterback rating that low ever. Mike,
Yeah,
wow. 1.2.
No. And look, I would want to, and you're probably right, Patrick. The thing about him coming in, there was just no tape. There's no tape.
Yep.
And so you didn't know. But I want to believe it was more about what Carolina did defensively to take him out of it. You know,
they just didn't want to pass the ball. Like
No. Well, and that's been the knock on Kentucky over the Stoops era. Even when they had the 2 10-win seasons, the passing game has been anemic for the most part. Now, they had the year with Will Levis and Wan'Dale Robinson. Those are two pros, and that was a year they had a semblance of a passing game. But they always seem to be pedestrian at best, and that, you can always blame offensive coordinators on play calling. But at the end of the day, it goes up the hill to the head coach. And Kentucky fans are tired of seeing offenses look like that. Now, I haven't seen a Kentucky offense dominated that well in a long time. That was just pure annihilation. And so
I feel like we got after the quarterback early.
Yes.
And I think put some pressure on him and made him blink a little bit and patter the ball a little bit and start looking for the rush, which I think did end up contributing to the 2 picks that we ended up having. We had a sack fumble. I mean, there was we got a good freaking defense.
Really good.
And it's fun to watch. I mean, the past 3 years, I would say we've been very reliant on forcing turnovers. We've forced 6 already this year through 2 games, but they're great, but I don't think teams are going to be able to drive the field in this defense very often. They're going to create a negative play here or there and just going to put teams behind the sticks, and the secondary is good.
Yeah, they played 10 guys up front this weekend as well, which was awesome to see. And all 10 of the guys that played up front on the defensive line, Monkel Goodwin received the lowest number of snaps, 15, not 5. So, I mean, Pat, by the time you get to the fourth quarter, they're fresh, man.
Yep. I mean, if you can get a 3 technique tearing off the football in the fourth quarter, that's a difference maker.
Yeah, it's and that when you transition over to offense, and that's obviously they definitely took steps this weekend. They definitely took steps. But I'll tell you this: there were 2 main takeaways, and you're the football guy, so I'll let you do it in your football talk. But one was going into the game, Flint had made this point time and time again. Steven made the point last week. Perry made the point. Get him out of the pocket. Get him out of there, and get this thing reset so he can use his legs if he needs to, but also it's going to be a throw first mentality. It created a bunch of easy throws for him to get comfortable early and to stay comfortable, make some plays late. That's number one. My second takeaway, though, I'm going to steal a term from JC because I love it. Man enough. They played man enough football on both lines of scrimmage this weekend, and that's indicated by just a couple of plays without going any further. One, the stop on 4th down of the Wildcats on their own 31-yard line. I mean, how many times have we been around here and the other team's telling you, kind of give you a heads up, we're going to run it down your throat here and move the chains, and they do. And Carolina said not so fast this weekend. Late in the game on Carolina's side, they were able, while the rushing yards were low, Pat, they were able to run the football when necessary, and that really counted. So your thoughts on all that?
No, I mean, 4-minute offense is one of the most dangerous things in football. If you can run the clock out when you need to, and teams are going to put 7, 8, 9 guys in the box, that's going to be a difference maker. And I think that is something that was very heavily incorporated into the offseason program, from strength and conditioning to bulking up to bringing Sean Elliott back and doing all those types of things. Is kind of an attitude. So, no, I thought it was awesome. Although, I mean, offensively, the statistics weren't incredible. I mean, Lenoris was 11 of 15, efficient. Get the ball out of his hand, let him make confident throws, dial them up when need to dial them up. But we only had 50 plays of offense. Like, that's a pretty good recipe too for a young quarterback who doesn't have a crazy amount of experience, is to not put him out there and make him throw it 40 times in a game. That's a stressful situation. Spreading the ball around too. Mazio had 3, Jared had 4, Michael Smith had 3, Simon had 2 and a touchdown. Like, this was, I think, what we were expecting, spreading the ball out, getting the ball to your athletes in spaces we were expecting week 1 against an inferior opponent. But you go out there and you execute it against Kentucky has a pretty good defense. Put up 31 up against them. So, no, I was very pleased. And that was, I guess, why one of the guys on the trip went for a little afternoon swim.
All right. You want to watch some film? You want to watch some film?
Let's do it. I jotted some notes down too to make me stay on point so I don't ramble.
And of course, Pat, as everybody knows, is the host of Tailgate Talks, the newest episode coming out this Wednesday, and you won't believe who's going to be on it. We'll let Pat tell you that here in just a little while.
You track them down. You can't hide. You can run, but you can't hide.
Unbelievable. All right, here you go. Pat, first score of the game to Mazio Bennett.
I mean, like, play calling here. I mean, it's 1st and 10. We're in plus territory. You might as well take a shot here. Lenoris just opens up and makes it – you kind of feel like eyes right, looking the safety off. And then it's a post-corner concept. And the outside receiver does a great job of crossing the face of the safety and bringing his eyes. Rocket does a great job in sitting the flat of holding that flat defender, and it's a 2-level read. If that corner bails deep, he hits Rocket in the flat. If that corner stays tight or that backer stays tight there, then you go over the top. And, yeah, I mean, Josh Simon does a great job of sealing the edge right here, defensive end rolling. So Lenoris was able to cozily set his feet in the pocket or just outside of the pocket and make a great throw. And that's probably a play that a fullback could have scored on, catching that ball right there.
Oh yeah.
Not much you got to do after the catch.
Yeah, only the good ones, Pat. Guys,
only the good ones.
Yeah, and getting him out of the pocket, something we had mentioned there a little while ago. I mean, it's he's good out there.
Yeah, I mean, his eyes always stay downfield. outside the pocket. So I think it's something that we're going to dive into more as an offense. And I thought Dow did a really good job calling plays this week, and was able to put us in situations to win.
To that end, Pat, because we're watching this for those on YouTube, and the thing that is glaring is how wide open Bennett is. So you mentioned Dow and you like the call. What is it about that call that caused Kentucky to basically lose Maceo Bennett and have him on an island out there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a kind of a post wheel concept. So the number one receiver ran a post and he crossed the face of the safety, kind of taking the safety's eye. So the corner has outside leverage and they're kind of bracketing him here. But when he crosses the face of that safety, that corner is supposed to drop back into the opposite third and not carry him. And he carried him, and that just left Maceo with an outside release on that nickel backer. I mean, you got 2 covering 1 and 0 covering 1.
0.
So just a great play call. I mean, but if that guy stays and you hit Rocket in the flat, and you have an easy 7-8 yard completion. If not, you can break a tackle and score 2 because it'd be 1-on-1 in that situation. So just a great play call. Flood the zone. And then a great ball. I mean, he knows how open he is. That's one that you throw, then you're like, oh, God, please, 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 just catch it. So perfectly executed play. And not to mention, it's a freshman to a freshman, boys and girls. That's
freshman to a freshman, yeah.
That's encouraging.
All right, how about this one here, man? Just, gosh, these ends, Stewart and Kennard or something.
Well, I mean, the first thing that jumped to my mind was like that took like a second and a half. Like, 1/1000. Oh shoot, they're right in my face.
Yeah.
So I mean, just didn't have enough time. I mean, it looks like they're running a mesh concept. So 2 receivers are crossing, then you got the high post guy in the middle. So they're basically reading man zone. And if it's man, then you're throwing to the under route on the mesh concept. And if it's zone, you're going to hit the guy at the top of the TP. And he didn't have enough time to go from first read to second read to third read. This is just Dylan Stewart putting his hands in a 340-pound tackle and just, like I said last week, walking the dog. And just, I mean, he's a man amongst boys. He's 18 years old, and golly, he's in 2 games. He is as advertised.
The one against the triple team, like that became a Twitter sensation, not just for Gamecock fans, but people around the country are like, holy crap, this kid is unbelievable.
Yeah, Your slide was going to him. You had the tight end or halfback chipping him, and then the quarterback fled the pocket, and he ran. I mean, he ran 50 yards that play and defeated 3 defenders. I mean, that was incredible.
It's these guys, and you want to make sure you go ahead, Phil, on number 3, but want to make sure we give a lot of credit to the interior too. Those guys have been just outstanding through the first quarter of the season. Here's that. Speaking of that interior, there's the stop on 4th and 1.
Yeah, I mean, this goes to show you how confident Kentucky is in their offense to like execute throwing the football. I mean, this to me was like they had a chance. I mean, it's 4th and 1 at your own 30. Like, nobody does this.
Felt
especially
desperate.
Especially it was a middle second quarter, beginning of second quarter. Like, this just goes to show that they realize that if there's an opportunity for us to try to steal one, we got to steal one because we can't hang with these guys. But what you see here is you see Boogie and Tonka just going low. We used to call that jackknifing. So just jackknifing the defensive tackle or the offensive lineman, just creating a pile. Then you see 17 and 18, the 2 backers, just basically coming in there and creating a wall. And then, I mean, that's a great picture. That's Luke Day, the strength and conditioning coordinator at South Carolina. That's a win for him right there. That's a play where he can pat himself on the back for all the offseason, winter workouts, summer workouts, and all that. So it's a big play. That has not been something historically that South Carolina has done over the last couple of years to stop the run. And we just shoved it right up there, you know what, and then followed it up with a touchdown pass here. And I believe this is the one right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on to number 4 here. This would be the touchdown to Josh Simon.
Yep. I mean, really cool concept here. There's a concept that is in almost every team's playbook, 3-by-1 verts. So you have your outside receiver trying to hold the cornerback, so outside release. And then you have 2 and 3. So number 3 is running a quick through, and number 2 is reading the seam. So if it's 3 deep, so middle of the field closed, you're hitting number 2 like Josh Simon here. But if it's middle of the field open, so 2 high, then you're looking for the middle seam. So that would have been Michael Smith right here. So, but cool thing here is we ran out of it, like we switched. So put some confusion on the buzz defender, the hash defender, the guy right there on the hash, and had guy cross his face and another guy flood right to him. So, I mean, beautiful play call. I mean, you're in cover three buzz strong, released inside, and then as soon as you carry that backer, I mean, it's wide open hole shot right there. So beautiful play call.
Pause that real quick, Phil. If you can pause it there. Hey, can you back up just a tad? I want to ask you about something here, Pat, because Rocket Sanders obviously open out here in the flat. Yep. So what kind of explain that part of it, because when this play was being played out live, I didn't even see Josh Simon.
So you got the deep third over there on the 10-yard line on the far side of the field. You got the flat defender just outside the hash. And then you have the hook curl defender on the hash. And then you have the middle of the field safety right there in the middle of the field. So, I mean, Rocket is holding the flat defender, and then you carry the hash defender right there, the hook curl, and then just honey shot right over the top.
What sticks out to me, Pat, on both these plays, and you could, I mean, even if they had to go swing it to Sanders in the flat, that's a big gain too. Like they clearly Brad White's a long time, very well respected defensive coordinator at Kentucky. Done a lot of good things. But I'm watching receivers run open on these plays, like really open. So clearly they saw some things leading up to this game that they knew they had schematically some areas where they could exploit Kentucky defensively.
Yeah, I mean, if you send 4 to a side, it's tough to defend in the pass game standpoint, especially if you can hold up. And that was 4 guys flowing to one side. That's why they had to keep that flat defender out there, and the hook curl defender was in jeopardy. So, no, I mean, I think these are, Dow plays in the NFL for a long time, so there's a lot of NFL concepts that have become kind of standard in college football at this point, when before I feel like it was a lot more dumbed down football. These players are held to a higher standard than I think they used to be from a preparation standpoint. I was one of them. So I think that just goes into kind of the NFL model. I mean, you look at an off-season program for college universities now, like they have essentially phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. They're doing 3 to 4 installs. They're expecting players to come back in the afternoon and watch tape. They have iPads to bring home. I would imagine that the university is tracking if the players are watching their iPad and studying tape. Not that they can mandate them to, but I think they could nudge them and be like, "Hey, did you watch that clip I sent you? Yes or no? Okay, you're full of it. Okay, you're going to sit on the bench." So accountability. Sorry, my honesty.
Yeah, but it's true though. It is kind of scary, actually. It's even scarier that they have these tablets in kindergarten now, but we'll save that for another day. All right, up 24-6 here, the opening play of the fourth quarter, Pat, and this sealed it.
Yeah, I mean, we rush 4, have 7 deep, and they're in a max pro. This is just a tough situation for the quarterback. Not too many holes in a defense when you drop 7 and you only have 2 running routes. So, and you can tell he's in panic mode. Like, he's had pressure on him all day. He's tired of getting his freaking face smashed in by our defensive line. And he goes to get it out quick. And I mean, he throws it in a sea of white. I think there was 4 guys in that clip right there that he tried to throw it through, but Nick makes a great play. Nick's long, athletic, physical player, but he makes a great play on the ball and brings it home. I mean, he's a Columbia boy. He's a guy that, was a late offer, and tell you what, we're glad we did, because he's done some really good stuff.
You know what was impressive about this interception here was how cleanly he caught the football. I mean, it was a missile coming out of him.
It was a high rocky, yeah.
Yep, and he didn't bobble it, juggle it, nothing. The ball just stuck in his hands. The dude's a football player.
Well, you see him there. He's in run support, so run action at him. He's coming downhill. He's a C gap defender there, and then once he sees it's a play fake, he gets into his panic drop and buzzes back and just falls right into like you said, a freaking missile right over his head that he goes and makes a great play on.
The ball doesn't even move once it hits his hands. Man, Nick Emawari, an All-American in his career at South Carolina, and now named SEC Defensive Player of the Week, alongside Kai Kroger, who was named that from the special teams. All right, so now LSU comes to town. That concludes our film room session there with our film room guru from the NFL Network, Pat DiMarco. So now here comes LSU, Pat, and you've got a different deal coming here. I think LSU's offensive line is much better than Kentucky's. Their quarterback is much better than Kentucky's. I'm pretty sure at this point in time, probably everybody's is going to be. I don't know if Vandergrift's going to be that bad all year, but he wasn't good the other day. But LSU's got some bad news. Their best defensive tackle now out for the season. We just got that this morning. Their starting tailback, who was ruled out for the rest of the year with a torn ACL last week. They're going to try to throw the football, Pat. So it seems without saying that if Carolina's defensive line can play well up front against that offensive line of the Tigers, boy, they're going to put themselves in a pretty good spot to go 3-0, right?
Yeah, I mean, up front, I think that's been our strongest suit so far defensively. I mean, we haven't been challenged. We got challenged once in the ODU game on a deep ball. Other than that, we played really well in the secondary, and then we didn't get challenged at all against Kentucky throwing the football. The 1.2 passer rating kind of makes that statement. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their stats. The quarterback is completing about 75% of passes. He has 610 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick through 2 games. And then, like you said, it's kind of a running back by committee because they lost their starter. But, you know, they lost a close one to a good USC team week 1. And now and then last week beat Nickel 44-21. I mean, that's 21 points given up to a team like that that's not encouraging. So, no, I think they're in for a dogfight. Coming to Columbia, especially College game day. Last time game day was here was 2014, and we played Missouri and lost in a nail biter there. I think College game day came to the Bama game in 2010, my senior year, which was absolutely epic. So I expect, you know, Beamer to continue to ride this high. I mean, he is like the culture that he's been preaching about and talking about. You kind of saw it on Saturday, how the team connected and played for each other and played complimentary football. He was pissed after week 1 ODU and not playing as well as we could have, but he also stated that the locker room was going to be pretty pissed too, and that the standard was not met from their standpoint too. And they came out and answered the critics and some.
Pat, Kyron Lacey is a dude. He's a matchup problem for most. What do you expect Carolina to do in the secondary to help neutralize him?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll definitely have to bracket him a little bit, have a little safety help over the top. But I also know Clayton White. Clayton White runs a lot of quarters and pressures a lot, especially in situations where you're going to pass the ball. He doesn't want you to sit back there and pat it, and get into a situation where you're getting scramble drills. He wants to make you get the ball out of your hands fast. So, I mean, I think who would you say is our do we have a lockdown corner? Do we have a guy like Cam Smith or Darius Rush that –
I think O'Donnell Fortune is going to draw Kyron Lacey this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, if OD's the guy, then he's going to be the guy that's going to match up. But I would imagine we'll have another set of eyes spying him.
Yeah, it'll help over the top.
Well, and how much does it help too? I mean, John mentioned this earlier, and Pat, you've mentioned this time and time again. I know we'll get you out of here in the next 2 minutes, but it's tremendous when you can rush just 4 and get pressure like they're doing, and it changes everything defensively.
I mean, if you can create pressure with 4, like there's nowhere to go in the zone. Like, especially if you got to get it out fast. A lot of these routes they take. I mean, these deep progression routes are 5-step drops, back foot, step up, then throw. I mean, it's not 5 steps, get the freaking ball out of your hand before your soul gets smashed by Dylan Stewart. Like, that's just not in the playbook. And if we can, I mean, not to mention, like, he mixes it up, like, with quarters, and I mean, we bring zero a decent amount. We bring a lot of one pressure. So I think as long as our DBs stay on top, we're going to be in a good situation this week.
Final thought here on the offensive side. Again, they made some progress this weekend. Rocket got his yards late when they mattered. Had some protection issues on the perimeter. Some tight ends are having a difficult time out there, Pat. They're missing some guys here, and they got to get that cleaned up. There's no doubt about it. But overall, what's the next step? Where does this thing need to go over the next few days to take another big one against the Bayou Bengals on Saturday?
I think you just continue to lean into the run game and let, Rocket Sanders, who's been effective so far this year, let him attract the attention, and then let those fast young receivers go out there and do their thing. I mean, we're big up front. I mean, our offensive line is large. They can move people. And I also think a part of that is, like, don't force Lenorse to run the ball 20 times a game, but, like, he can scoot with his legs, but also let him break the pocket like we saw in a couple of those plays on Saturday. He is more effective when he's on the move and can get creative with it.
Well, speaking of creative, this was pretty creative on your behalf, you and Steven Garcia. Coming up on Wednesday, the latest episode of Tailgate Talks is going to be released early that morning. Folks have been wondering and mentioning this. They've been joking about this for now 16 years, because it happened in 2008 against LSU when they were in Columbia Williams-Brice Stadium. And I'll let you take it from there. Who is one of the special guests this week?
This one's a double whammy, because this guy actually played at Kentucky, and then he was the 12th defender on the field for one game at LSU. So Wilbur Hackett Jr. Is going to be our guest this week. And how much fun was that? Raise your hand if you know who Wilbur Hackett Jr. is. Nobody. Yeah, you guys do now. But if you say that name in random conversation, everyone's going to look at you like you're crazy. But everyone will have to tune in on Wednesday. I think we dropped a little hint on our social media page too about it. So it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. Steve and I have had a blast doing it. You guys have been a huge help. Hopefully you guys have been tuning in because it's been a lot of fun to stay in the game outside of coaching, because I did that for 2 years and just wasn't for me. But this keeps me involved in football and lets me catch up with my old college roommate. And, I think it's something that the Gamecock fans have always wanted to hear, some of these stories that are stupid and nobody would have thought about, that Steven and I can bring to life.
It's good stuff.
This one's going to have a lot of life to it. Yep, we're aware. So looking forward to it. Pat, always thanks for the time, my man. I know that you and I got to connect on some things a little bit later, and we'll do that certainly. But wonderful segment as always. Carolina is 2-0, and I'll be up Friday, so I'll see you then. Beers are on me.
Let's do it.
What's his name once said? What's the guy's name? Anyways, it doesn't matter. But they're on me. I got you Friday. All right. See you, man.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
always.
Pat.
There you go, Pat DiMarco with Tailgate Talks, Chief Network. All right, let's hit a timeout. We'll come back. JC and Mike, I know, are anxious to get all their thoughts in, having not been here for the first hour. I've got all mine out. So we'll let you two fuss and discuss what was a big, big weekend, and it's going to be an even bigger one this week for Carolina football. Hang tight. Inside the Gamecocks, the show presented by our friends at Resto Pros. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more.
Hi, I'm Joel Lurie. If you're turning 65 this year or retiring soon, you probably have questions about Medicare. How do I enroll in Medicare? When do I need to enroll? And what plan fits my needs and budget?
Why use an out-of-state call center when you can work with a local agency?
At Lurie Life and Health, we'll research your doctors and prescription drugs, and we'll help you find the plan that meets your needs and budget.
Lurie Life and Health. Our service is at no cost. Call Lurie Life and Health in Columbia, 803-256-2067.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, in Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Gamecock owned and operated.
Bring on your forces of nature. Bring on the storm that's raging. If you get lost in the shadows, there's a fire inside you. Be the light that guides you. Come on, carry your flame. Carry it higher. Even in the darkness, carry your torches. Come on, carry your flame. Set the night on fire. Even in the darkness.
The only thing that could probably make this coming Saturday any more exciting, other than a win for the Gamecocks, would be playing it at night. But it is a noon kick on ABC. And I will say this, turn it over to you boys. Welcome back, everybody. Ty TG. That's 6 straight hours of primetime coverage for Carolina on Saturday morning. Game day, right into the ball game. I mean, they have an opportunity to make a major statement at Williams-Brice Stadium.
No doubt about it. It's an infomercial. It's publicity that you can't buy. Now, it does come with a potential pitfall, and that is, and it's happened a couple of times. This is what, the 7th or 9th time game day's been at Columbia? First time in 10 years, but I think it's at least 7 overall, going back to Lou Holtz.
Definitely at least 7.
Yeah. It's either 7 or 9. I read that this morning.
It's up there.
Wouldn't surprise me if it was the 9th time for the team, but on neutral sites. Because
Are you including?
They were there last year, in Charlotte.
Not to derail your conversation,
No,
because I know you're trying to make a point here, Mike, but are you including Thursday nights too, or just Saturdays?
Really just Saturdays.
Okay.
I mean, because Thursday is kind of like that's a mock-up show. I mean, and Phil brings up a good point. I might have read that where they included like a neutral site, Charlotte. But bottom line is, if you have this, it's incredibly good. It's incredibly positive. I mean, Carolina's been kind of living in the shadows the last few years, and so no matter how it got to this point, they picked you. If you get smoked, then all of a sudden you wish it never happened, right? So you got to take care of business. You got to go ahead and win the game. You win the game. It's an incredible environment. Game day is there for 3 hours. I know how these productions are done. I've been in these rooms and know a couple people behind the scenes on game day. I mean, I guarantee you they're going to obviously talk national. This is not a Gamecock broadcast, but they're always looking for a Gamecock angle, the home team angle. So there's going to be a feature on Could be Lenora Sellers. Could be a coordinator. I mean, it could be a fan. Like, there's going to be things. Not to mention, some Gamecock fans can have a chance to win money off Pat McAfee if he can kick a 33-yard field goal or with 37, whatever it is. I think it's 30, 33, 34. Was it from the 25? Crap, I don't know. Anyway,
it was a 35-yard field
35. Goal. Okay, someone's gonna have a chance to win some money. But no, they're there, and they will give extra time to a program that, quite honestly, they would not. This is not a game that would have gotten a ton of love in an ordinary circumstance. But LSU is a major brand, even though they've already lost a game. And they love, I'll tell you this, I know this for a fact. Of course, the SEC Network is based in Charlotte, which isn't that far away, but the people that are involved in that show, they love going to cities where they know they can have a good time, and they know there's a good meal, and they know the crowd is going to be bonkers, which it will be, I'm sure, on Saturday. They love Columbia. Yeah. You know, this whole thing, like the national media has this agenda against South Carolina. That couldn't be further from the truth. Like, that's really overestimating A, relevance, and B, like this conspiracy theory that they all have it in for. They love Columbia. They love going to Columbia. There's a lot of college towns that, quite frankly, don't have a lot going for it. They don't want to spend 3 days, and no names need to be mentioned. They don't want to spend 3-4 days in some of these cities. Columbia, they're down with Columbia. So again, it's a great opportunity, and you just got to show up and play. And if you do, you're 3-0, and you got Akron, and you're 4-0, and you got all this momentum and all. Boy, what a difference 7 days makes, huh? Mm-hmm. What a freaking difference 7 days makes.
You get that right.
Feeling a little better about ourselves around here, that's for sure.
Well, that was, and we don't know what Kentucky's going to be long term. You know, maybe this is one of Stoops' worst teams. I don't think so. I think they just got completely outplayed, and they got out schemed, as we saw DeMarco. I mean, you're seeing receivers that are just quarantined. No one within 10 yards of them. So let's give Dow a little bit of credit on that. And the defense, which we've been talking about since the offseason, has potentially a real kind of flying under the radar, but has a chance to be dominant. It certainly looked dominating on Saturday. Now, LSU, as you mentioned, Jamie, and I think everybody knows this, LSU is going to be a different test. I watched every minute of that Southern Cal game, and although they lost it, they now have a defense again in Baton Rouge. That by poaching that Baker from Missouri, they're coached better. Perkins is playing in the right position again. The offensive line is the best in the SEC. They have the number one offensive lineman that's going to be taken in Campbell. And this just in, Nussmeier can play. This is not Vandegrift. Nussmeier is somebody they've been high on for a long time, and they were scared, whatless, that he was going to hit the portal, but he never did. He just stayed and waited his turn, and he and Lacey, that's a really good combo. So they've got some weapons. It'll be a greater test than what you saw on Saturday.
Yeah, I think look, this is going to be. I mean, LSU is no stranger to elite college football atmospheres. They play in what is traditionally known as the SEC West, so they're not going to be walking in any ballpark just scared poopless. And I'm saying that as a Gamecock guy. I know what Williams-Brice Stadium can bring to the table, but they're not going to run into the ballpark and go, wow, we've never seen anything like this before. They play in Tiger Stadium. They're going to be all right. I think that the challenge, for the first time in some time, we get to actually talk about football when it comes to a big-time contest in Williams-Brice Stadium and mean it. Like, not like, well, it should be an incredible atmosphere. Yeah, that's all great. But like when Alabama, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to compare the Carolina football program after 2 games to Alabama or Georgia or something like that. But everybody knows when LSU and Georgia and Alabama and Auburn and these teams that are traditionally really good in this league, when they go on the road, they know what type of environment they're going to go into because they're really freaking good. And everybody's going to show up to boo them and cheer against them and hope their team gets an upset. But the main part of all those conversations, Mike, you've been doing this for years, calling games in the SEC, really has to do with, cool, awesome, awesome, tremendous. It's going to be a lights out atmosphere. but can they actually win the game or not? And generally, at least in the last few years, when these big time games are played in Williams-Brice Stadium, it's more with a hope and a prayer that they can win. Like, you don't have actual information that leads you to believe, like, well, no, they're better than this team here. Carolina actually, through 2 games right now, has provided some of that information that they are better than a lot of teams defensively, and maybe special teams is what it's supposed to be. And there is tangible evidence that says from week 1 to week 2, this offense, like, they actually had an identity this weekend. Y'all remember last week, this conversation? I was like, I don't know what the hell they're trying to do. Yeah. And you saw it. You saw you saw them stop a team on 4th and 1. You saw them on 3rd and 6 run the ball into the end zone and put this game out of reach. Like, there is tangible evidence that leads you to have quality football conversations with a damn good football team coming to town. That is what excites me about this whole thing for Carolina.
I'd be pretty excited about Mazeo Bennett too. Just have a feeling that he's that guy. Like, we've been not debating so much as having fun with it. Like, okay, who's going to be the receiver that steps up? Who's going to be the guy? There's no Leggett on this team per se, at least not that we know of right now. But who's going to be? Mazeo looks pretty good through 2 weeks. Still early, but he seems like a guy that could really blossom into a hell of a player.
In-state true freshman.
Yeah.
Has had that position at receiver. There's been many of them that have come in and done really well right away. He had a really good spring. He's competitive, kind of an older, like, his attitude is older, I guess. He's a mature kid. So was really happy for him. And I as far as the offense goes, Jamie, you mentioned the identity. I mean, they threw in a little. I mean, it looked like a completely different offense.
I know.
They did a lot of cool stuff. I mean, they ran some tempo, which I think's good for a young athletic quarterback like Lenoris. He just kind of plays free. The 2 plays where Mazeo Bennett was wide open. I mean, you can't get a better design than that. The touchdown to Josh Simon was beautiful. I think a key moment in the game for Lenoris Sellers, and I wish he hadn't had to go to the locker room, although Robbie Ashford came in and I think ran for about a 20-yard gain and got him down the field. But all right, it was maybe 3rd possession, second. No, it was the touchdown, four play, 61-yard drive. The first play was a pass over the middle, kind of an intermediate route to Jared Brown. And there were 3 people around Jared Brown. And Lenoris zips it in there, and Brown catches it. He held on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Huge confidence boost. I think from that point on, Lenoris said, okay, I can play at this level. I can do this. This is me. I'm going to be my – Lenoris just seemed like himself. I love motioning the tight end into the A gap. That's people are saying that's a Sean Elliott thing. He did it at Georgia State to get the run game going. I think Kentucky – you were asking about Kentucky's defense, Mike. I think they just were not going to let South Carolina run the football.
That's right.
Based on the body of work that South Carolina had presented, my God, these guys can't throw. And it's almost like they expected Sellers to have a game like Vandergriff had.
100%. And we talked about that leading up to the game, right? I mean, that was, if you've been listening to this show, that was no surprise. That was going to be the game plan by Brad White in Kentucky. They were not going to let Lenoris just sit there and gash for 100. Rocket gash for 100. They were going to make sure that Lenoris was going to have to make plays with his arm to beat him, and he did. Now, the pick, obviously, that's a teaching moment. And no, I don't criticize the coaching staff for being aggressive there. Do you want to play scared, or do you want to?
No,
you can't have it both ways.
Loved everything about that.
I loved everything about it. That's just an awful throw. Don't blame that on the play calling.
You can't throw it high across the middle.
Of course not. We can't get to this point where every time he does something well, we praise him. Every time he does something poorly, it's on the OC. That's silly talk. That's just an awful throw. You learn from it. The 2 fumbles, which you were fortunate enough to recover, you've got to sense the pressure, and you don't want a situation where every time you get hit looking downfield, the ball just jars loose. That's a no-no.
Concern.
That's a concern.
That'd be a big concern.
Look, man, like I've never coached quarterbacks and never been a quarterback at this level at all. But this kid, I think he was drinking a little bit more from the fire hose than a lot of people wanted to actually admit over the last couple of weeks. As ready as he was to play from a talent standpoint, right here, it takes time.
Yes.
I mean, but he got some lucky bounces. Now, can that happen moving forward? Like, it's not always going to bounce into the arms of Michael Smith, the tight end, who just happens to be running by. That's not going to happen every time. But there is some grace in that. And to your point, Mike, I was going to make the same point, and I'll add to it at the end of the game, up 25, throwing the ball deep. I love that. Like,
absolutely.
You can defend that if you're Shane Beamer. Wait a second. Everybody's going to bitch and moan about our freshman quarterback. And this is where we're trying to teach the game to him so we can win more games. I love if you're going to be aggressive, you have to live with the fact that you might make some mistakes. He made a big one, but he never crumbled, and he came right back out and played well.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of time on the clock there where you can get points. So you don't just run it into a pile. You go ahead and you dial up some plays that can get you in position to get extra points before the locker room. I have no problem with that play call whatsoever. And yeah, look, this is something that was discussed all off season, and some people get a little sensitive because you take things the way you want to take them. I've seen a number of 5-star quarterbacks go through this league, and in the first few games or even their first season, they get extremely humbled. It's not because they're not worth a damn. It's because there is a learning curve that you're just not going to learn in practice. You're not going to learn until you're under the lights and you're out there. And it's not going to be the last bad throw Lenoris makes. Probably not going to be the last time he fumbles the ball on a hit because he doesn't sense the pressure. These things happen to really, really good quarterbacks. But there's also things that you see that he has that you can't teach. That makes you excited to watch a kid that still has 3 more years after this year to go down as, who knows, maybe one of the best that ever played at the position at Carolina. But that's still a work in progress. And this is another great test. Quite frankly, it's a better test, I think, than Kentucky, because LSU showed me something in that. So I didn't even watch 2 seconds of Nicholls State. You learned nothing from that. But I learned plenty in the Southern Cal game. That's a game that, quite frankly, they should have won. And Southern Cal's got some athletes over there. And LSU is, to me, a better all-around team and certainly a better defense. So this will be – I'm excited. I'm excited about the game. I'm excited about the weekend that, again, it's incredible exposure. And people are all of a sudden talking about a team that they wanted to summarily dismiss because they didn't look good against Old Dominion. Well, maybe having your sphincters tightened up in the fourth quarter of a game against ODU when you're trailing with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, maybe that actually does some good things as opposing to playing Murray State and beating you by 50 and running up a bunch of gaudy stats that mean nothing. They're empty calories. So I think ODU actually, in a weird way, kind of helped week 2.
I don't know if anybody paid attention to the rest of college football this weekend. Alabama was up by like 4 points in the fourth quarter on South Florida. People weren't happy with what was going on there. I mean, Oklahoma snuck by Houston at home, 16-12. Is Houston better than ODU? I guess, but is Oklahoma supposed to be in a dogfight with them?
Jackson Arnold, 5-star quarterback, best thing since sliced bread. He didn't look like it.
Guys, Auburn got beat by Cal.
Auburn's got a quarterback. JC and I talked about this morning. Like they could have fixed that in the portal, and it's not like Hugh Freeze is Dabo Sweeney where he's just being stubborn. I don't know. I'm sure they offered some guys. Maybe they offered Cam Ward $1.1 million, and Miami offered him $1.5 million. I don't know. But you couldn't have believed, based on last year, that Preston Thorne was the answer, and you did nothing to fix it. That's a problem.
Josh Payton had an interesting theory on that, though. Like I was listening to Josh, and he had an interesting theory on the Peyton Thorne thing, and that it was Freeze's call to not go after hard a quarterback, in the portal because they had the money and resources to do it. I mean, it's Auburn. But this was not the year to go overspending on a quarterback because you had other glaring issues as well.
I mean, I can buy the second part. They did have other glaring issues, but
you got to have a quarterback.
JC knows this. I've been saying for years. Yeah. If you don't have a quarterback worth a darn, you could be loaded at all these other positions, and you're not winning a ton of games.
The money should. I mean, they're worth the quarter. Some of these guys aren't worth it. Right. Some of these guys, like I agree. I'm sure Brian Kelly is shaking his head right now after the injury they had to their D tackle. But Brian Kelly, that kid that went to Oklahoma, asked for $1.3 million. He's a defensive tackle. He's good. He's not great. Probably about a 4th, 5th round draft pick. And I told him to go jump in a hole, right? That's fine. I don't think Florida State's getting their money worth out of DJ Ungalala.
You don't?
No.
Why? What,
Crazy,
come on,
crazy think, right, JB? That's a
real
wild
conversation.
theory.
What
That's a
led you
wild
to say
theory.
that? Watching him play for the last 4 years?
I think at that position specifically, even if you look at before we had a transfer portal, the number of transfer quarterbacks that have not just had good seasons at their new school, but exceptional program elevating seasons. Going all the way back to Lincoln Riley having his parade of transfers at quarterback. There's my boy Joe Burrow. Burrow, I mean, you just kind of look and look around the country, and just about it. Most of your teams do have transfer quarterbacks, and that position is just worth it, in my opinion. So,
yes,
I don't know. I know they have Brian Harsin screwed that whole thing up. They didn't leave a whole lot of good players, good talent, whatever. So I understand they do have other, and I think Josh's theory is plausible. However, I think it's Hugh Freeze being a little arrogant, just like he was with Bo Wallace and at Ole Miss, and everybody was wrong about Bo Wallace. Bo Wallace at least was an accurate passer. You have to be accurate. Exo says in the chat box, Auburn was trying to get Riley Leonard, but he went to Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a recruiting outpost on Tobacco Road. They just go back and forth between Wake and Duke, and they'll take their quarterbacks every year.
Riley Leonard has regressed, by the way. I don't know what happened to him in South Bend, but he took a dip in the fountain of suck, because he is really – he went from a guy that people were looking at as an NFL high pick, and he can't throw the ball right now. And I know he's coming off an injury, but, man, he's a different dude.
Yeah. There's no question about that. I mean, you look around. I know we're hitting a timeout here, but when we come back, we'll obviously look around what else happened in college football. So we haven't had any of these conversations yet here on ITG, and just how some of it has changed just in 1 week. And I'll say this too, going back to the conversations that we kind of started a few weeks ago, guys. And Mike, I remember when we had this conversation with you first, you nod your head like, yeah, nobody knows anything anymore. We judge college football the same way we judged college football before coming into the season, but it's a different game. The parameters are all different. Yeah. Nobody knows anything about any of these teams except for the same 4 or 5 every year. They're always going to have players. Everybody else, you don't know what you're getting. So you're seeing some of that now.
Florida State preseason top 10. How'd you like to have bought some stock on that?
Hey, how about Vandy, man? Like, I get it. They beat little old Alcorn State, but I don't remember Vandy running 55 points on the board against anybody.
You know what it's like?
They scored 70 on Hawaii a couple of years back, Jimmy. Remember that one?
I don't stay up for 11:59.
It was a week 0 game, and they scored 73, and everybody's like, Vanderbilt's going to be good. And then,
but not after they beat Virginia.
They don't play defense in Hawaii. So the next game, I think they had like 6.
You know what it's like? So for years and years, I've run a fantasy baseball league and now a fantasy football league. So I know probably thousands of people that listen to this show are in some type of fantasy league. So maybe you can relate to this. The question I always get when somebody joins the league, is it a keeper league? And I say, no. So I don't want people coming in the league that have a disadvantage because the guy that's been in there 7 years, he gets to keep all his best players. And no. We start fresh every year. That's like college football. Yeah, there's some returning players, but now more than ever with the high turnover, it's not a keeper league. You're starting with a lot of fresh faces and fresh rosters, and everybody's got a ton of new starters and everything else. And so that's what makes it more unpredictable. Now, the top is still the top, and Georgia's still Georgia, and Ohio State's still Ohio State. But for the rest, or like JC and I talk about that sweet spot a lot, like the number 8 team in the country to number 48. It's not a huge difference in terms of overall talent and one team on any given Saturday can beat the other when you start going in that range.
When we return, we'll update you on some of the betting lines too. Again, we'll take a ride around the rest of the country, just have some fun with that. But also here in just a couple of minutes, we should get a solidified kick time for Akron and South Carolina at Williams-Brice on the 21st, and the rest of the SEC kick time should be rolled out here in just a couple of minutes. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Hang tight. Hour 3 up next.
Mike here for my good friend Troy Branham of Golden Gate Mortgage. Let's face it, it's been a rough go for mortgage rates the last couple of years. And now more than ever, you need someone on your side to get you the very best possible rate on a new mortgage or a refi. That's where Troy comes in. 27 years of experience working for you. Conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, rehabilitation loans, all doable with my man Troy Branham of Golden Gate Mortgage. And when I say doable, I mean the best possible rate that's out there. It's a phone call that can literally save you thousands of dollars. 803-238-0111. 803-238-0111. You can also check out the website ggmortgage.com.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
We got started in 1979. Because we're a manufacturer, we're able to control our costs. That's why we like to manufacture as much of the product as we can, because in our factory stores we can offer a competitive edge over other people around the country. When people come into one of our Palm Casuals, it's like they're buying their car at Detroit. They're going right to the factory and buying their car.
30-day money-back guarantee. That's a big deal with us. I mean, we give 30 days to do anything. I mean, return it, change it, get a different color, get your money back.
When you pull into a store and it says Palm Casual, you know you're at a factory store.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case. Nice. So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth, and we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Hi, I'm Joel Lurie. If you're turning 65 this year or retiring soon, you probably have questions about Medicare. How do I enroll in Medicare? When do I need to enroll? And what plan fits my needs and budget?
Why use an out-of-state call center when you can work with a local agency?
At Lurie Life and Health, we'll research your doctors and prescription drugs, and we'll help you find the plan to meet your needs and budget.
Lurie Life and Health. Our service is at no cost. Call Lurie Life and Health in Columbia, 803-256-2067.
With a little love and some tenderness, we'll walk upon the water, we'll rise above the mist. With a little peace and some harmony, we'll take the world together, we'll take them by the hand. 'Cause I got him for you. I said get up and let me see you smile. We'll take a walk together,
All right, 1 hour to go. 2 are in the books. Inside the Gamecocks is back. Mike Morgan, JC Shurburtt, Mad Dog, Mullinax, or Phil, if you will. And, of course, I'm JB here until 2 o'clock. We are built by the Barndo Co. and presented by Resto Pros. Here are the kick times for September the 21st. We're back into 2-week mode for anybody wondering. All the first 3 weeks, all those kick times that were announced. But we're back into 2-week mode. Based on windows, remember, based on windows. So you've already got a window or two, and that's now we just get them finalized. Carolina, I won't bury the lead here. Carolina and Akron will kick off at 7:30 on Saturday, September the 21st, and that'll be televised on ESPNU, Akron, and the Gamecocks. Florida, Mississippi State will start the action at noon on ESPN in Starkville, Ohio, and Kentucky at 12:45 on the network. And then at 3:30 or 4:15, Auburn and Arkansas. We'll see what that looks like, ABC or ESPN or ESPN2 or the SEC network. A lot of words in there. It's like the depth chart at South Carolina. UCLA and LSU, 3:30, 4:15, or all of them. And then Vanderbilt at Missouri. How about that? How about Vandy? Or all of them. Tennessee at Oklahoma at 7:30 on ABC. No shocker there. Bowling Green at A&M, 7:30 ESPN Plus. Georgia Southern will take their butt whipping at Ole Miss at 7:45 on the SEC network. And Monroe will take theirs at Texas at 8 on ESPN Plus.
As Ole Miss, they don't even have to wear an antiperspirant this first few weeks.
Not till they come to Columbia.
Goodness gracious.
You don't just walk into the hostile environment in Winston-Salem
on the CW.
On the CW and expect to come out.
Broadcast on the CW is scarier than the venue. At least it should be, because weird stuff has happened there.
Anybody know the Party of Five theme song?
She can catch Gilmore Girls before watching Lane Kiffin, one of her favorites.
Hey, do y'all think that has an effect on a football team? Think about it. Like, you're top 5 in the country. You come into the year and you got Furman, Middle Tennessee at Wake, Georgia Southern before you finally play an SEC game against Kentucky at home. Like, do you feel like someone maybe check out a little bit? I don't know.
I think that's human nature. Yeah. I mean, some people might say that's what happened to Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's done this 3 times now in the last 3 years under their new coaching staff. So yeah, I don't like just going Cupcake City the first few weeks. I think it gives you a false sense of who you really are and what you are at that point. And that reality hits, that train is coming down the tracks, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, so this is what real teams look like.
I think it's always good to face adversity, though, because it's inevitably going to happen. As much as everybody in the stands doesn't want adversity to happen, it happens. And winning and losing is about how you respond. So if you don't face any adversity and you're not used to it, it can put you in a very uncomfortable position.
That's a good point.
No.
Well, speaking of that, let me ask you this. I'm gonna get him all fired up, Mike. Phil, everybody just calm down. Hey, what happened to Dave Doran on Saturday night? And you're fighting Wolfpack. What the hell, man? I thought you picked him to win. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think you picked him to win, but I thought those are your boys.
I just told all Tennessee to beware. So I thought Tennessee was very impressive, and I said on JC and Morgan today, Tennessee's always kind of been my sleeper team, and I think they're probably a lot better than people think. But it's also a group, just watching them 2 years ago.
What is it? What do you think's better? The offense?
They're
defense,
better on defense than they have been in a long time.
Gotcha.
And that defense is designed to cause havoc and chaos and get sacks and interceptions. And when you have a defense like that, you're going to give up some big plays every now and then. The other teams, you're probably not going to shut a lot of people out, but it's a momentum thing. And we've seen Tennessee do this since Heupel's been there. When they get rolling on offense and you can't stop their offense, they're scoring in 2 minutes on your defense. And then their defense is like blitzing 7, and your quarterback can't, or they're getting a pick 6 or whatever. The score can get out of hand. And that's what happened to State, I think. I'm going to address this in the chat box. JCO's Gamecock Nation, a huge apology, way too negative on the Cocks going into that Kentucky beatdown. Is it because I picked Kentucky? I'm picking LSU this week.
Hey, I'm going to keep picking against Carolina if it works. I don't care.
I'm going to pick Akron next week. I wasn't negative at all.
What did I miss? You didn't pick Kentucky to win the game.
Yeah,
did you?
I did. He did.
Because
but I mean, what did you see from them out of week 1?
I'm not being critical.
No, not you, Mike, but they're
a 10-point dog for obviously. He ain't alone.
I hate making picks.
Yeah,
and I think I just don't. I don't take them seriously. Football games are determined by scenarios, and you're guessing which scenario will play out, right? Yeah. And so I don't really like making picks. Some people love them. Some people don't. I don't. I'm not particularly great at it. And so why not try something different? Why not try something different? I mean, I'll play.
Speaking of which, what do we have our results from Fab? I know we don't have the winner just yet. We'll get that by tomorrow, I guess. But
I'm pretty sure.
Hold on, yeah, I can.
Yeah,
no,
man.
I'll give it a second here.
That was one reason why I almost just picked Carolina. I mean, if you guys want me to just pick Carolina every game, I will. I usually do that anyway.
Well,
I don't. There's really no skill in that.
I'm not going to sit here and spend any more time explaining myself on a stupid pick because I don't.
Yeah. But it's strategy.
If that's all you took away from everything I said last week, then you're just focusing on the pick, man. And don't do it. Don't focus on my picks, good or bad. Don't listen to me when it comes to like exact picks. I'm good. I'm okay against the spread. It's okay to listen to me there, but not these like final score predictions and stuff. I'm not good at it because there's in my brain doesn't work that way.
You went 3-2, so you didn't do too bad on that at all.
Look at that.
I don't know. Hold on. How many? What was the official tackles on Debo Williams? I think it was less than 7.5. It was 6. Yeah. Okay, good.
At the end of the show, I also said, don't be surprised if Carolina wins, and don't be surprised if they win by a significant margin.
Yeah. I changed my.
I don't think you have to justify trying to be the least bit objective on making a prediction. Like if y'all just want like 4 people to sit here with pom poms and everything you want to hear, like probably not the best show for you.
Jesse, I was not on any Kentucky podcast last week at all. So I don't know. I'm sorry you're confused. I really am.
Yeah.
You spell my name with 2 U's, 2 R's, and 2 T's.
I tell you what, here's what the people that feel so passionately can do. Because predictions, again, they're like, what? Everybody's got one. But put your money where your mouth is. And we might start having some fun with this too. There's a service called Cut. It's if you have an Apple, which I don't, they have an app, K-U-T-T Cut. There's also the website. Those of us that don't have an Apple and never will, never giving in to the man. Cut.com. So, and by the way, our listeners get a 10% sign-up bonus. Just type in Gamecocks. So what this is, it's not a gambling app. It's a social betting app. We all like challenge our friends. Like maybe Jesse there wants a piece of JC on this week. Maybe JC would have the unmitigated gall to say LSU wins this by 2 points. And Jesse says, you're wrong. Carolina's going to win every game by 30. Well, you guys could actually settle it on cut.com. and go ahead and make a friendly wager and not have to worry about the bookie taking 10%. No VIG. There's like a 3% transaction fee, but that's nothing. You can go ahead and have some fun with it. You can bet your friends on who's going to win the election. You can bet your friends on prop bets. Is Lenora Sellers going to throw for 250? Anything you want. It's a great concept developed by some South Carolinians, although this is a national product now used by several. So we're going to have some fun with it in time, and I hope our listeners will as well. Again, it's cut.com, K-U-T-T, and the sign-up bonus, which will give you 10% off, will be Gamecocks. Pretty easy to remember that as well.
That's pretty easy to remember. Yeah, so if you want a piece of JC, you meet him at the Rushes on Garner's Ferry, and you kick his ass.
That's right. Y'all know where to go. Y'all know where to go.
Man,
all right, so, Phil, Oklahoma State ended up covering because they had to go for 2.
Amazingly, I was sweating.
Yeah, you went. Everybody went. Well, everybody whose name starts with a J went 3-2. Mike had an off week at 2-3. Yeah.
Well, for the record, I had Arkansas Plus 7.5. Arkansas dominates the game. I mean, has like 300 more total yards. They are up the entire game. Kid muffs a punt. Play calling mysterious when you're protecting a lead like that. And then they do everything they can to A, get Sam Pittman fired, and B, send the game into overtime. So what happens? They're tied still after the first overtime. Well, again, 7.5. Even if they get a touchdown, I'm still winning. Well, guess what? And this came to me the moment that we went in the second overtime and they scored a touchdown. I said, they got to go for 2. That's the rule.
Can't kick it here.
You can't kick an extra point double overtime. So they go for 2, and you knew they were going to get it, and they do. And then Arkansas on 4th and 1 with one of the most innovative play callers in the history of the sport just runs the back straight into the pile for a loss. And that's how the game ends. And that's how Oklahoma State gets a cover, although they were completely dominated for 3.5 hours.
I couldn't believe that one. When I left that game to watch our game, I'm like, dear Lord, please let them go for 2.
Yeah,
that's the only way I'm going to get a cover here. I did too. I was like, no, let's put it on the Carolina game.
Our boy John Strickland actually told me that, broke it to me that they covered. I was like, wow.
Well, I have beef with the official score here because I went 4-1, Mad Dog.
Oh God! This is 2 weeks in a row. Y'all are.
I know. I'm gonna start keeping track of that. This is getting out of hand. If you can't
write these down as they happen live. Okay, so I had Texas, Oklahoma State, Colorado under. Am I right? Where did I screw up there?
I took Oklahoma State to cover.
Yeah.
I took Texas to cover.
Yeah.
I took Colorado to cover. That was my loss. I took Debo under 7.5, and I took Rocket under 4.75.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a
Come to think of it,
that was a calculation.
I think I was 5-0. If you go back,
that's that shit. That stuff you put.
Calculation error. All right.
Yeah, there we go.
It's the first time Mad Dog has cussed on this show.
So I'm 7-3.
No, you're right. Yeah, I missed a
Mad Dog. I did. In all seriousness, I'm pretty sure I was 3-2 because I had Colorado. Excuse me, I did not have Colorado. I had the opposite, Nebraska. And I had the under.
Yeah, you went under 3.
So I went 3-2.
Yeah.
This is
if you'd have waited a day and I could have graded these without having to produce at the same time, I might have got them right. That's all right.
We're gonna file a protest.
Dare ask what you went? Are you magically 5-0 this week?
No, I went 4-1 too, but I was yeah. It was. If
I think the same guy that went on that Kentucky podcast went 2-3, but I was 3-2.
Yeah. Now
I don't know who that is.
Everybody was over 500.
JC, you know what, man? I owe you a big time apology because we joke about how you can't pick games. I think Phil's just throwing you under the bus every week.
He is, man. Phil is taking the field.
You need to check your picks against your best friend there.
Look, man.
That's okay. All right. I'm dumping the music out of the bit and I'm going to post it as a clip every damn week. That way.
Yeah, that way we'll have it. But no, I knew somebody was going to come up with be mad about my picks. I'll say this: 22 years ago, I worked in Gainesville, Georgia, as a sports editor of the paper. And this reporter we had named Robert Watson, great guy, Auburn guy, he loved picking against the local high school team. And this team went 13-1 and went to back then they played the semifinals in the Georgia Dome for some reason in the Georgia football playoffs. Went all the way to the Dome, which is unprecedented for Hall County. And people got really violent about it. Like they showed up to the newspaper. We had to call the cops a couple of times. He got hate mail. That Robert Watson, somebody put his name up on a billboard. Robert Watson is wrong. Because he just kept doing it. It was kind of funny because they kept winning and he kept picking against him. And he called himself, and the column was called Mr. Right. So since that experience, I don't care. I mean, but I also am smart enough to know people overreact to them quite a bit, you know.
Well, the KSR crew, what do they all have? Kentucky by 100, and then during the game, you got someone trashing Kentucky. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to pick the home team every game, and then when they lose, then I'm just going to crap all over the coach. Like that's what a lot of shows do, right? You just placate your audience, treat them like children. Oh yeah, we're going to win every game. And then when you lose, then you just trash the coaching staff and they go, we should have won this game. I had it analyzed right, but the coaching staff blew it.
There's no analysis that goes into me making a pick. I mean, I thought literally last week, guys, I knew all week I told everybody I was going to pick Kentucky. And I'm probably going to pick LSU just because I'm on a roll. Right.
Yeah. But I think you should do that.
I definitely, that's going to be a thing. I'm picking Akron the following week. Until they lose, I'm going to pick against them. That said, the picks are the picks. I mean, you analyze the game, but I did think last week, I was like, I don't think I've ever and I've been doing a Gamecock podcast / show in some form and JC Morgan since 2016. That's Will Muschamp's first year. I think I've picked a Kentucky game every year. I don't think I've ever picked Carolina, maybe in 2020, and I don't even know if we made a prediction then. Have I picked South Carolina to lose to Kentucky? So if that's what's going to help them play like that, and out people talk about put it out in the universe. If I put that out in the universe and Carolina plays well, I could give a crap about my picks record. I don't care. I don't care. Right. So, because it's important, and I think we do enough of breaking the game down and telling you kind of how to cover for me not taking the picks seriously. Everybody else can. It's just for me, I'm going to have an ulterior motive every time I pick a game.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll hit a quick timeout and we'll come back. Some of the games we did pick and some that we didn't. There were 5 ranked teams this weekend, guys, that went down, and there were a couple that averted major disaster early in the season. And so we'll have some fun with some of that and some other things in the SEC. And of course, we will continue our conversation about these 2-0 Gamecocks after what they did up in Lexington. Mike, JC, Mad Dog, JB here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. This hour, the Power Hour, is driven by Love Chevy. We'll be right back.
Oh, man. The building is on fire.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you, guiding you through the process and working with you to get your home or office back in working order. They'll answer your questions, discuss procedures, and can act as your advocate when it comes to processing your insurance claim. Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Edward Jones is a proud sponsor of Inside the Gamecocks, the show on the Chief Sports Network. Call me, financial advisor Eric Ponder, at 864-862-2161 for all your investment needs. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
The electric grid that had been placed under Lambeau so that the field would never freeze.
Those 2 things are all the NCAA has. That's all they have. They're not worth anything without the men's basketball tournament and now the women's tournament.
Listen to these interviews and more on the JC and Morgan podcast by downloading the Chief Sports app. Part of the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com. Gamecock owned and operated.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the 2 of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cards while you're at it.
I knew I'd like that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more.
Ah, the summer solstice, when the ho-hum of the everyday is replaced by an overwhelming sense of freedom. A time for living, for rolling the windows down, cranking up the tunes, and blazing new trails. Now is your time. And Love Chevy is celebrating with incredible summer savings on the entire lineup of award-winning new Chevys. Unprecedented savings right now on the ride of your dreams. Love has them all, primed and fully equipped for your next adventure. And right now at the lowest prices of the year. The best prices anywhere, in fact. Love guarantees it. The others are still saying anything to lure you in and let you down. With the same old gimmicks and ridiculous add-ons. Love is different. Over 6 decades of honesty and integrity, and the long-standing belief that car buying should actually be a whole bunch of fun. Now is your time at Love Chevy, I-26 at Harbison, and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
Hey Gamecock Nation, my name is Kyle, longtime listener of the show and avid golfer. I wanted to take my game to the next level, but let's face it, golf is a hard game to learn on your own. I heard the ad from McKellar Enterprises and reached out to the owner and former Gamecock golfer, Meredith Taylor. In just 2 months of working with Meredith, I shot my lowest round ever, and I've never felt more confident in my golf game. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, go to McKellarEnterprises.org and book your lesson today with former Gamecock golfer, Meredith Taylor. Go Gamecocks.
This is Lenore Sullivan from Gamecock Football, and you're listening to the show with JC, JB, and Phil.
Move on this week. We'll take a deeper dive. Go ahead, Mr. Gamecock. There you go. We'll take a deeper dive into LSU and Carolina. Coming up on Saturday, Williams-Brice Stadium. Mike, JC, Mad Dog, myself, JB.
LSU against Nichols Saturday night. 21 carries, 64 yards rushing.
Yep, saw that. Really interesting, isn't it? You know, it's look, that's kind of what I mentioned, JC. I'll let you run with it here, but that's kind of what I mentioned to Mike. And the fact that you actually get to have real football conversation. South Carolina has something that appears to be, dare I say, elite. And that's how you win these games. This isn't all about the crowd and the hype and the game day and the shows and all that. This is about football. If South Carolina is stopping the run and they're making anybody one-dimensional, I don't care who's at quarterback, this defense seems to be in a prime position to really do something special.
This is a big test for the D-line because they're so good on the offensive line.
Yeah.
They've got NFL guys up there.
No question.
You know, I think with Kentucky, you mentioned the Big Blue Wall narrative. It's probably been about 3 years now since they've had like what they used to have up front. And I think we all thought with Eric Wolford going back, we know Eric Wolford. He usually gets his group better when he takes over. Maybe not in Alabama, but everywhere else he's been. I think we just assumed they'd be better. They weren't. They really struggled with Carolina's athleticism off the edge. So the question now is going to become, will it not matter? You know, are Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard that good off the edge to where it's just not going to matter? Because not a lot of people in college football can get their hands on Dylan Stewart or block Dylan Stewart? I mean, those are the types of questions that are going to be answered this weekend. Yeah. If I'm LSU, you know, I'm liking. I mean, and this is another time. If you can't get a pass rush off, Nussmeier can pick you apart. I mean, that could happen. I think Carolina's defensive backs are pretty good, though. I mean, it wasn't like there were guys running wide open, and thank God that they got home with the pass rush. I mean, the one long pass they gave up to Dane Key was just an incredible catch. I mean, unbelievable catch, really. There's nothing O'Donnell Fortune could have done about it. Then if you notice the very next play, O'Donnell Fortune, who's playing more angry this year than he ever has. He and Gilbert Edmond both. I'm going to put them in my thank you for being angry, playing angry category, because they haven't always done it. He blows the daggum screen pass on him.
Yeah.
You know what? The very next play, and then the next thing was I think either Stewart or Kennard got home and made a sack, and then the TJ Sanders sack. So that stopped all Kentucky's momentum right there. Just getting back out there, that next play mentality, which all the players we have on our show, former players, they'll tell you that. You know, you can't, especially at corner, you got to forget about it. Go play the next play. And OD did that. And then I thought Vakari Swain had a heck of a game too.
Hell yeah.
You're starting to see that guy really.
Wow.
He was you know, he ended up being about a top 125 recruit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as much as I would have loved for them to put him at receiver last year, because he was like redshirting at corner and Carolina didn't have any receivers, I'm glad they did, because he spent that year kind of learning corner at this level and he's ready to roll. I think he could be in time very, very special and a high draft pick. And I do have to give kudos to you, JB, talking about OD Fortune. He's been so much better this year, consistent, so much more consistent. And I love the fact it bothered him that play was complete and he got mad and blew up the next play. I mean, that's big time. It's reminded me of Sheldon Brown closing.
Well, I mean,
Jonathan Joseph, maybe, you know.
And I'll say this too about that play, because we haven't had anything to talk about negative the last two. People have circled 3 plays. Just every stop. Hold on just a second here. There have been like 150 plays run against South Carolina, and you'll hear like, oh, man, but that play right there. You're talking about 3 plays out of 150 where the ball's actually moved down the field in 2 weeks. That's pretty freaking good, if you ask me, number one. Number two, the ball that went over OD's head, that's why Brock Vandegrift was actually a 5-star. That right there. That was a perfect throw. There's nothing you could do. I don't care who you put out there. Stephon Gilmore now in the NFL. They're not stopping that. The ball was dropped in a breadbasket. The next play, he said, I've had enough. And he busted that guy's rear end in the back. I mean, that's just – those things are going to happen. Like, the other guy can actually make a play sometimes too. So I don't fault him at all on that one play. He's been outstanding through 2 years.
We hadn't seen a defensive backfield like this at Carolina that could close in the run game in quite some time. There's been some good defensive backs that have played here. I mean, they're in the NFL now. But against the run and the short stuff, these guys close quick. I haven't seen that. I don't think I saw it the entire Muschamp era. But
OD's the only one who's not an All-American. You realize that, right?
Yeah. I mean, so it's
not yet. Yeah.
I'm just like I'm impressed with that part of the defense as well, because and you can tell finally, just to praise everybody here.
They deserve it.
Faster at linebacker too. Somebody mentioned Bengali Kamara in the chat box earlier. That was one of my favorite. The 2 kids from Pitt, I was all about, because I know Pat Narduzzi. And I followed his career, and people gave Mark D'Antonio a lot of credit for evaluating at Michigan State. But when Narduzzi left, that thing went in the tank.
That's great.
It's Narduzzi who was the genius up there, especially on defense, man. And DeAndre Jules and Bengali Kamara can play ball.
Great point.
I would only add, and you might have covered this, guys, in the first hour, but we got to give some love to the offensive line.
Yeah.
Week 1 was not a good showing. But week 2, which is more indicative of what you're going to see in an 8-game conference slate, I thought they were – you could see signs. Shane wasn't blowing smoke when he said, look, they're not as bad as people are talking about. They're young in some spots. Obviously, a true freshman at left tackle is always a concern. You're going to have some mistakes. You're going to have some misses. But I thought overall they played well. That Kentucky defense, you wouldn't know it the way the game went. They do have some studs. They went in the portal and plucked 2 guys from Georgia that are damn good. Did we see Deion Walker make any plays in the backfield?
Well, I was about to say, does anybody know how many he was in on 3. How many solo tackles he had?
0.
1.
They ran it right at him.
Yeah, we mentioned that on Friday.
So I mean, he was neutralized. They've got 2 potential all-conference linebackers that were neutralized. You've got a secondary. Now, one guy really, and I forget his name, not the Hairston kid who gets
Waller.
Yeah, the other kid. He had a monster game, but there were receivers wide open. There was push when there needed push. Lenoris, more often than not, had time to throw. I mean, I was encouraged by what I saw.
My man Torricelli Simpkins on the Rocket Sanders touchdown crushed his dude. I mean, he pulled and came around, and Torricelli's another one of those violent, angry players. That was good to see. Somebody pointed out, I don't know if it was in the chat box or the website or what, Rocket Sanders has scored 5 touchdowns in 2 games, and 3 of them have been called back.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but I mean he got one though. He one that was called back. He did get right.
5 times 3 of them been called back. But I thought Josiah Thompson, the true freshman at left tackle, played well. I mean, Tree didn't play that much at all.
No,
Saturday.
But you know who did? He played less than 10 snaps. I think Trevon Ball played 7 or 8. When he was in there, though, he pancaked 2 dudes, like leveled him out. One of them was on a touchdown. I thought the guy was never going to get up again.
I hate to say it, I would consider moving him to the other side and let him and 52 battle it out. I mean, I think he's playing at a very high level, and it's just there's just not enough room I don't know that you bench Simpkins for him.
No,
they're both good, but maybe there's a place for both of them on the field. We'll see what happens, but yeah, Deion Walker is going to be probably the best defensive tackle the Gamecocks face. Peter Woods from Clemson's really good, I'll say, and I think A&M has more strength on the edges. But
I think some of what happened on the perimeter, JC, and that's not an offensive. All of those were plays that were misses by the tight ends or the tail. It was miscommunication. But a lot of what happened there was the amount of attention is much progress, and I do think there was good progress with the offense this game. They paid so much attention because they had to Deion Walker. You can't just let this guy just change the whole ball game. They had to pay attention to him. That did allow some guys to run through free on the outside. There was some miscommunication there, and there's certainly things they're going to have to get that cleaned up when they do play guys like that again, because Lenore Sellers did get if 1 or 2 of those balls. I think, Mike, did you say that earlier? Or JC, one of you mentioned earlier that if 1 or 2 of those fumbles doesn't just land back in the arms of a Carolina football player. Yeah. I'm not saying Kentucky would have just scored, but they might have. It could have been a little bit of a different game.
Yeah, those are momentum changers if you're not fortunate enough to cover them, no question. But look, at the end of the day, this was domination, and we're having a little fun with JC and picks and everything else. But in all seriousness, even if you thought Carolina was going to win the game, nobody who actually put this thing under a microscope thought that this would be thorough and complete domination of Kentucky on the road. There was no reason to think that. Like, the stars were not aligned showing that. So, I mean, it's one of those where in a series of 12, 13 games a year and in year 4 under Shane, there's only so many games that you bookmark and you say, well, that was a program-changing type of win. I don't know. I can't sit here and say definitely that's what we're going to talk about 3 months from now, but we very well could. We very well could look at that and say, that's when we all said, yeah, this thing could be headed in the right direction again.
I think that when you took the job here, if you're Shane Beamer, the one thing that, there was a lot of issues, right, as far as winning and losing. When he got here, one thing I'd want to do is change that Kentucky series around. That's Kentucky is one of 4 teams now in the SEC. Carolina has a winning record against. I think there's something like 17 of the last 25 against them now, despite the Stoops streak. By the way, I don't take away victories because the NCAA vacated them. because I think that's stupid. But if officially Mark Stoops is now only 6-5 against South Carolina in his career,
right?
It seems like it's a lot crazier than that, but it's not.
Yeah.
He's 6-5 because he's 1-3 against Shane Beamer. Winning records against Spurrier, Muschamp, beat Bobo like a drum that one time. But and Beamer, really, if you go back to that 2021 game, Carolina had their chances to win it at home. I was there. Yeah, it's like, and look, Macadino says this about Rocket Sanders and a team without an elite front. And he said, cough, cough, LSU. I said this all offseason. This is one thing I mean and I believe. I thought Kentucky's defensive front presented far more of a challenge than LSU's on paper. If you're just talking D-line, now they got line, but LSU's got athletes, and they have something Kentucky doesn't, and that's confidence and mystique. And the Golden Band from Tigerland is going to be in that corner, and they'll probably bring a good crowd because they ain't been to Columbia since 2008, and they think they're going to win. And they had that opening loss. Brian Kelly's going to be hungry. But I do think just when you're talking about players, Kentucky has better players on the defensive line than LSU this year. It's crazy to say, but I think they do.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, I agree with that.
I think LSU fans would agree. They're still ticked off at Brian Kelly for not getting a D tackle in the portal.
That's true.
They spent $1.3 million. That dude in Oklahoma, he's doing nothing.
And now their best one's out the rest of the year with it.
That's recruiting malpractice. You can throw a rock and hit 5 good D tackles from
just 2 sacks thus far too for LSU. I'm not so sure that it's as bad as maybe it's made out to be. Like they have affected the game at times, but I do think Kentucky's is better based on what we've seen. But we'll find out this week.
Do you guys remember the hype on Harold Perkins 2 years ago at this time?
Yeah.
And it was justified.
Yeah.
Because he was everywhere. He was he was an absolute alien, and he was just. And then I remember doing their spring game and talking with Brian Kelly, and he was like, "Yeah, we're going to move him to kind of a hybrid outside linebacker." And I was like, "Really?" So they moved him all over the place last year, and he was completely a fish out of water, had a major decline in productivity. So this year, they're like, okay, that was dumb. We're going to make him the rush end that wrecks the backfield again. And we're going to make him – I mean, he's been okay. He had – what did he have against Southern Cal? Again, I don't care what he did against Nichols. He had 7 tackles. I don't think he has a sack yet this year or a pick or a forced fumble. So he hasn't been that dude that everybody thought he would be, that had, NFL teams just salivating over the chance to take him in the first round. But I'll be curious how he looks on Saturday. Number 7 in whatever color LSU elects to wear.
Because he's a stand-up. They're standing him up.
Maybe Carolina wears white at home this week.
It's like when the Texans stood up Clowney. That didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, that dude's a hand in the dirt.
Right.
That's one of the reasons Clowney, when he got recruited, South Carolina and Ellis Johnson and Lorenzo Ward sold him on a 4-down alignment because that's what he is as an end. And of course, Bama runs 3-man front, and they wanted him kind of as a jack linebacker, kind of like a Will Anderson type of player. And I just don't think that was Clowney's game, man. I mean, I think Dylan Stewart could do it. I think Dylan Stewart could stand up, cover passes, whatever you want, man. that guy's an animal. But I never have understood the Perkins thing, and then they doubled down on it when Blake Baker got there as their D coordinator. I just don't get it. So
I don't either. It's 1:41. We do need to step aside for our final timeout of the afternoon, but the Carolina Jackpot $5 scratch-off ticket is back. It gives you a chance to win up to $200,000 while supporting future Gamecocks across the state. Over 229,000 scholarships and grants funded by the lottery since 2002 to South Carolina students alone, like Gamecock students, not the state. Talking about the University of South Carolina. After you play, enter your tickets into the second chance promotion where you can level the playing field with another chance to win 50, 75, or 100 grand live at an upcoming women's basketball game. See sceducationlottery.com for game odds and details. Final segment, ITG, up next.
Oh, yeah. Nah.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cars while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
Coach O here. And when I'm not eating average jambalaya or celebrating endless summer in Destin, I like to eat pimento cheese straight off the bucket. And the only pimento cheese I like to eat is from Nana's Porch. It's award-winning. It'll melt in your mouth. It's good on a cracker. It's good in a bowl. It's good on a piece of bread. Also, don't forget Nana's Porch has a hell of a food truck. It's award-winning as well, and they're here for all of your catering needs. So get online, nanasporch.com. It's good. Coach O signing off. Endless summer. Go Tiger.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Oh, appliances. We can't live without them, and eventually we have to replace them, but we don't have to pay more for the new ones. Not with Carolina Discount Appliances. Do you want to go and shop at a bunch of retail stores and determine which one has the lowest overpriced item? Me neither. That's why my first call is always Carolina Discount Appliances. The philosophy is simple. No retail prices. None. It might have a scratch or a ding, but overall it's new and will cost you much less than what you're going to pay anywhere else. So if you need a refrigerator, washer, dryer, stove, range, or microwave, they've got you covered. But for less money. Same brands, same appliances, less money. And Carolina Discount Appliances is the home of the $40 down. Take it home today. No credit needed payment options. Regardless, Sherry has you covered. Call today, 803-770-3008. That's 770-3008. No matter where you're located, same number, same person, Sherry at Carolina Discount Appliances, 803-770-3008. It saved me money. It'll do the same for you.
Crazy, by the way, to think that last year Carolina had 21 sacks in 12 games and 54 tackles for loss.
Averaged 85 yards rushing a game.
Yeah.
Which is one of the worst in the country. Both those numbers are going to be severely improved this year.
Well, Mike through two games. The Gamecock D already has 10, which is half of that 21 total, and 19 tackles for loss, which is over a third of the way there.
You know,
it's amazing. You can flip it in a hurry.
We all agree the quarterback's most important position on the field, right? Like if you're going to pick one, but number two for me has always been D-line.
Yeah.
If you got a dominating defensive front, which it looks like this team is going to have, that can make up for so many things. Not that the back seven is bad at all. It's actually pretty damn good. But when you have a front four, as Pat was talking about, where you can get pressure without sending extra guys, that makes life so much more difficult on the opposing quarterback. And when you've got a front four that's raising hell, it also makes your offense look better. I mean, it's just everything about what that front four is going to be able to do. And Pat talked about it before the season started, just kind of walking around. And sometimes I think we all overuse the term eye test. But when Pat DeMarco, a guy that played in the league for how many years, Jamie?
10
years in the NFL, not to mention his four at Carolina. When he says, guys, I'm just telling you, walking around and looking at these athletes, it's just a different crop than what we've seen here. That raised my eyebrows. I don't know about yours. That told me something, and now you're seeing it translate results on the field.
All right. Now I will tell everybody, just be careful about comparing weeks to week, because if this weekend showed us anything, it's that teams change dramatically in the sport from one week to the next. But my boy Colin Guggenheim, senior running back, Kidder, Louisiana,
right there.
State Colonels. All right, here's his stat line against LSU: 25 carries, 145 yards, 6 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. And Nichols isn't like a triple option kind of special prep team. Their offense is kind of normal. So South Carolina has a golden opportunity to get Rocket Sanders unleashed Saturday, and I think it'll probably be a good plan to run the football to keep LSU's offense off the field. You know,
absolutely.
Maybe LSU's run defense becomes special. Who knows? But
I can tell you this too, JC. Just since last night, both down. LSU now just a 7-point favorite, and the total has come off of 52.5 to 50.5. So that Carolina defense, based on, I mean, it's resonating. It's resonating quickly across the country. That, you know, I don't know, maybe not a bunch of points could be scored in this ball game.
I bet that number goes down a little bit more.
I agree with that.
Although LSU fans like to gamble, and that's what moves the line now. It's not like a bunch of scientists in a room with lab coats. It's where the money's going.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mike. I think it'll settle around 6.5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Just under 7, maybe.
Well, that's what I thought it would be. I thought it'd be 6.5, but it opened at 7.5? No, it opened higher than that, didn't it?
It opened up higher.
I think it opened.
Yeah. So the money's been going on Carolina.
Yeah.
Look, LSU Southern Cal was a really good game, and I was more impressed with them than I thought I would be. Both teams in that game. That was a heck of a game. Mike called it as a high-level game.
Yeah.
But, man, they got Nussmeier. This is not a normal – I mean, through the years, there's been really good Carolina teams lose to LSU. 2012 comes to mind. I'll never understand why Les Miles with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry and Zach Mettenberger at quarterback decided to run power pro-style play action all the time. But Jeremy Hill ran all over Carolina that night, and they won by 2 down there. But most of the time when South Carolina's played LSU, they, even when during the good years, they've been a total disadvantage on the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
Even that 2012 game, as good as that team was, Clowney and all those guys on defense, LSU dominated the line of scrimmage. I don't see that happening this week.
Well, that's what I said earlier. Like, we can dress this whole week up with how electric Williams Bryce is going to be and game day and all that. That's the fun stuff. That's great, and it's right on cue. This is also LSU. They don't walk in any ballpark and think, well, I've never seen anything like this before. As neat as it is when 2001 happens and Sandstorm and all that, we all love it. We know how amazing it is. It's not going to scare the pee out of LSU. Like, they're gonna step on the field and they're still going to play football. They've been there, done that. But you get to actually have X's and O's, like real conversations where you're going, this Carolina football team is presenting a real challenge. Like, get all the crap out of the way, like the fans and all that. No. Like, when the dudes play football, is there actually a pathway to winning the game or not? There is a real pathway. So that's what's more unique about it than ever before right now.
This is always, and the noise Saturday. I think coming off a win, the noon crowd is going to show up, be pretty loud coming off game day and all that. But I with the helmet communication now, I don't know how big and how many mistakes you can force an offense into with crowd noise, but it's going to be, and this is Nussmeier's first road start. I don't know, man. If I'm LSU, I'm a little concerned. They're probably not. They're probably It's just this is kind of like South Carolina feels about Kentucky. It's just Kentucky. It's just South Carolina.
I mean, of course, they're concerned.
When you dig into the matchups, though, it's not like it normally is, unless LSU surprises everybody this weekend. It's just not. They just don't have the D line that they normally do, and I know the O line is special and good, but Carolina, that's the strength of South Carolina's defense, and it's going to be probably a little warm.
No, 80 degrees.
80,
maybe.
Don't say.
Well, that's because of every time LSU and South Carolina play. I don't know if you caught this in the first hour, but there seems to be weather involved, and obviously here comes another hurricane that's going to go right through Baton Rouge this week, and so it is going to affect their preparation over there. I'm sure they'll be okay, but this weather will still be kind of cycling its way through Friday and possibly into Saturday. So there's a 60% chance of thunderstorms on Saturday at Williams-Brice Stadium, but the temperature is expected to be a high of 80 degrees.
That's not bad. I mean, still fourth quarter of a game, you don't sub that much on the O-line. You do on the D-line. I like, if it's close late, South Carolina's D-line can go in there and eat. And it could be that way all year with the depth they have.
Mike, if you get a bunch of weather, who do you think that favors?
Ooh.
Interesting question, isn't
it?
That's
a tough one to answer. I mean, typically when that question is posed, you think of the better defense, I think. Yeah. Some people have always tried to maintain, well, that helps defensive backs, but it really doesn't, because the wide receiver knows where he's going. The DB does not.
Yeah.
So, and obviously if you're already prone to turning the ball over, that doesn't help if you're playing with a soaking wet football. But I think one other factor, and we'll have our guest on, whoever it might be, got a couple of ideas for Thursday for the opponent side of things. One thing to keep in mind, it is toxic in LSU right now. And I'm just telling you, like, their last three coaches have won a national title. And two of those guys, most people wouldn't exactly consider Mensa members on the IQ test, and Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. That's being kind. Because the feeling is there. And look, they can back it up. The feeling is there is that whoever takes that job, the resources are there. You're basically the only program in the state which is chock full of blue chip talent, facilities, money, fan support. You don't take the LSU job without expecting to bring a national title home within the first few years. Brian Kelly knew that when he signed up for it. They're not liking Brian Kelly so far. They're just not. And losing 5 consecutive openers, 3 under Brian Kelly, has made for a very the natives are a little restless right now. So if Carolina gets off to a good start in this game, you will feel it. You will feel some of that toxicity coming all the way from the bayou and just floating eastward, eastbound to the capital city of Columbia, South Carolina, because you can't be a player and not sense that. You can't be a coach and part of that staff and not sense that. As insane as it sounds, by the way, it's a huge buyout for Brian Kelly. As insane as it sounds, there are people there that if LSU lost a game like this, like you said, Jamie, well, they just kind of look at South Carolina. They're supposed to win this game. If LSU gets tagged with a second loss in September on the road in Columbia to an unranked Gamecock team, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be a national story headline because LSU is a national brand program that Brian Kelly just isn't the guy. So there's going to be a little bit extra just anxiety in the air for LSU going into this game.
I agree. I want to say something about the sacks and stuff at the beginning of the second half. I called for the broad. Greg McElroy mentioned this. Kentucky, yes, Lenore Sellers has to be a little more aware, and he can't just fumble, like he did, and all that good stuff. I totally agree there. But McElroy did make the point, Kentucky doesn't dial up a lot of blitzes. And they started to in the second half. So that may be something that just kind of caught them off guard. Weren't expecting it.
I think LSU will. I think LSU absolutely will, and I think the biggest question on Lenoris, who's still learning some things on the fly, is how does he feel the pressure? Does he know where it's coming from? Does he check down? Does he do all these things that veteran quarterbacks do better typically than a first-year starter? I would be shocked if LSU does not dial up a number of blitzes in this game.
Oh yeah,
100% agree with that.
Got to feel like number 7's coming from all over.
Wherever they send him from.
Yeah, wherever they send him from.
The way you counter that is you start just running it up their butts, like Colin Guggenheim did last week.
That's right. Yeah,
this guy.
Well, that's exactly right.
I mean, you got Rocket Sanders back there and 2 or 3 other backs. So,
well, I mentioned those man enough moments this past weekend, JC. You say that all the time. Are you man enough? And those high quality, the damn mariachi band is itching.
They're itching to go, man. They are. I'm telling you what, those guys are hot.
Come on, man, let me play.
You should have seen them, man. They played all night long.
They're ready to get on a Fiesta pack or something. Where did that come from? Easy, guys. You'll get paid. You don't have to do extra.
But there were those high-level SEC moments in this game this past weekend that Carolina generally has not excelled in, at least in recent memory, when they have struggled. Stopping the run when you know that they're going to run it, the other guy, and being able to run it when they know you're going to run it. And they had those moments where they were successful this weekend in Lexington. When you see that generally gives me a pretty good idea of, what type of team you've got. Are they tough or not? And B, what type of talent you've got. Do you have good players? And, I think South Carolina's got some pretty good players. That offense will continue to get better. But that's why we're on the air, not us. The guys that we have on, Pat DeMarco, Perry Orr, Steven Garcia, John Strickland, Michael Flynn. These are the guys you need to listen to. They'll tell you. And we're excited about – Pat was already here, but the rest of them will be here throughout the week. So excited about that. I don't think I've got any other parting shots. We'll work on Phil's math skills before we get back into our picks later on this week. That's
computations.
You talk about concerning. JC, we got a producer that can't count.
He's wanted to rob me of 2 wins in 2 weeks.
I have. I've got it out.
Goodness gracious!
I didn't.
This
contest. The Fab Five's tough enough without you tilting the scale.
I'll let you behind the curtain a little longer. I had the actual record for JC right, but I literally marked the wrong game as right. So that's how off we are. Typically, I don't look at that until Tuesday.
It's a Monday.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You got to do this stuff when you're sober, Phil.
You got into the chicken cock early.
Yeah, you can't. You and JC just can't be sitting around shooting the bull at midnight on Saturday. Well, let me grade the papers real quick. No.
Were you on my back porch? Were you?
No. Just good guess.
Since the mariachi band did rudely interrupt Jamie, that is a good segue to take. We will announce the winner for the Fab Five tomorrow. Somebody else is getting a Salsaritas gift card, a Gamecock Tradition gift card, and did we get Pimp's email? I need to get him Suki's cell number so he can get his prize.
Oh, yeah.
So
we've got his email. I forwarded the email.
Yeah, we got.
I don't have it. I mean, I have it on the thing, but it won't let me copy paste, and it's about 47 digits. As apparently Pimp is a double agent and working on.
Oh no, we have it in a better format.
No, we have his actual email. Yeah.
We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. I just don't want Pimp to think he's not getting his prizes because
he doesn't. We're not pimping you out.
Suki is a man of integrity, and when he says he's giving away Salsaritas to the Fab Five champion, he means it.
Thanks to John Whittle and Pat DeMarco, and always thanks to Mike, of course, and all of you. Carolina is 2-0. Shane Beamer will meet with the media tomorrow. Alex Jones will be here as well. So we're really looking forward to that. And by the way, it's a huge recruiting weekend coming up. Carolina football's got a bunch of big-time players. JC will be all over it this week, and he'll fill you in on that. But I also have just spoken with the folks of Gamecock Baseball, and they got a big recruiting weekend. Holy smokes. So a bunch of dudes coming to town this weekend in Columbia. We're going to try to do everything we can to get all those names out over the next couple of days ahead of LSU and South Carolina. For these three fine gentlemen, I'm JB. We'll be back tomorrow like we are every day at 11 o'clock right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show.